This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jumbo, everyone. Another lovely afternoon. Looks like we are surrounded by rain everywhere, but where I am, it's quite nice and dry. Jumbo, I'm Isaac, and this afternoon we're right here, and it's a beautiful afternoon. I have Olalashe, who has come out to start our show. So welcome to your afternoon live safari, live from the African wilderness. Jumbo once again, and this afternoon we are here, and Olalashe has come out in full force. I looked for him this morning and he was nowhere to be found, but for some reason he knew I was really looking for him, so he has come out right here. Jumbo, my name is Isaac, and on camera I have Bungei. This afternoon our mission is to find cats. Although we have lots of rain surrounding us, I hope it's going to stay a little bit away so that we can look for these beautiful cats. Yeah, remember to talk to us on #WildEarth. Questions and comments are really welcome. You can also send in your kids' question at wildearth.tv and also at FC. You also can go to our website and send in your question. Remember, I'm joined by my fellow guides in other location who will be introducing themselves quite shortly. But it's a very cloudy afternoon. I don't know if you can hear the thunder from distance. Where we are, it's the only, this is the only spot where there's no sign of rain. Well, I don't hate rain, but it would be nice if it stays away. Olalashe, the male lion you see over there, he is the dominant male of two prides, namely Olololo Pride and the Owino. He has been with the Olololo Pride for the last almost 2 months, mating with different females. And soon I think he's gonna be heading back to see how his other pride is doing. It is normal, and it's known for males to have more than one pride sometimes. We estimate he's about 7 plus minus, and he's all by himself. It does happen like this, especially after what he did about 2 days ago. They killed some warthogs, and him with his coalition male Kijana ate all the warthogs. And so I think all the females sneaked off and went to look for something for themselves. He looks like he's not in a hurry, and I think I'm gonna do the same. So let's give a chance for my fellow guides to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Masai Mara. We have a small herd of elephant and with a tiny calf. My name is Tim, and behind camera we have Big James. This is a nice elephant calf. Look at how tiny that calf is. I think, to be honest, that calf looks like about 2 months old. Look at how tiny that elephant is. At the moment, that tiny calf is not able to use the trunk. What's happening? Look at how cute he is. Their trunks are so fiddly at this time before they get the age of about 2.5, almost 3. That's when they get coordination of the trunk. But at this age, they don't have coordination. So most of the time you find that if they want to eat, they'll just bend down on their knees and then grab or bite grass using direct the mouth. That's the mom there keeping guard while grazing. There must be other elephants behind the bushes. Jim loved the elephant. Who doesn't love the elephant? Thank you for your comment. Look at how he's doing, trying to get between mom's legs. Okay, it's time to go now. Just look at what happened when the matrix started walking. Everyone is following and all will go the same direction where she's heading. There's a communication that just went through. It's time to move. Without the command of the matriarch, no one can do anything apart from listening or just adhering to her communication. So they'll walk slowly, heading towards the escarpment. So a daily routine that they perform. So we always see them walking from the escarpment, come to the open grassland, and then go to the marsh, and then back and forth each and every day. So I'm just going to keep an eye with this family, with that tiny calf, as I take you over to another live location. And what a beautiful setting for the term. Very good afternoon. My name is Kyle. Welcome to Tswalu. Behind camera is David. Thanks very much for joining us on this wonderful and very special day. And what an amazing scene we have out in front of us. The topography, the green covered landscape, the clouds. It's just all too perfect. So for the young ambassadors, please don't forget to let us know of any questions or queries that you might have with the terminology kids questions at wildearth.tv, or for the other individuals, just hashtag wildearth or at FC. Any questions or queries or comments, please stream them through, and I'll try my hardest to answer you as best as possible on this beautiful and wonderful landscape. We are going to take things very easy this afternoon. We had a little bit of luck this morning with some wonderful animals that we didn't intend of seeing, but those leafcutter bees, just with the rain that we had yesterday, they emerged a little bit later, unfortunately, and we didn't get a chance to see them, but we will. I will definitely make sure to go back out there and for us really to get involved with those incredible insects. But that's what we're going to be doing this afternoon, looking for birds' nests, looking at trees, maybe even a grass or two, just whatever Mother Nature has to offer. I love going out with no intention, just whatever nature intends for me to see. In that case, I'm always pleasantly surprised, so to say. But the landscape here is so beautiful. The beautiful Coronaburg Range running south from our position. We are currently looking south. And that beautiful valley there is a very prominent valley that cheetah love to move through. And if you take a look on the right-hand side, you'll see that that little red crest there is actually part of a dune, a very large dune on this section of Tswalu. And it's quite warm today. It's getting warmer and warmer every day. It's about 31 degrees Celsius. It's about 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's quite toasty. And that's very important for plant growth and development. They need heat. And now with that moisture that we've received sitting in the soil in conjunction with the heat, it is a perfect platform for this boater to just spiral out of control. And obviously it's very important for multiple platforms, from insects and mammals and birds, and then just for us to enjoy. So from now we're going to send you off to one of our colleagues, and then we'll see you back on this side of the world.
Welcome to my side of the world once more, and now Olalashe has decided to take a nap. In between being very, very vigilant, lions do sometimes lie down, hoping that whatever they were looking for will appear, or whatever they were looking at will disappear. When I say that, I mean if there was a topi that had actually seen them or him, it will ignore him because he's sleeping and go away. And so when he wakes up, he can start, all over again. They spend quite a lot of time sleeping, like he's doing. And he's quite aware that the rest of the pride is not very, very far. And so, he's not very worried. 18, 20 hours of a day are spent sleeping. Might sound like a lot, but lions work really, really, really hard, for whatever they go for. Recently, these dominant males were very, very, desperate for a meal. The reason was the girls had disappeared off, and mostly they depend on the females to do the hunting. They play a very big role when it comes to hunting big animals. Sometimes the lionesses need the weight and the power of these huge guys to be able to bring down an animal like a young giraffe or a fully grown giraffe, hippo, buffalo. So they are actually quite needed. The reason is they are twice the weight of females, about up to 200 plus kilos. And this is a power to reckon. Why so many people love lions? It's a symbol of power, a symbol of pride, and everybody just loves lions. When he's asleep like this, he's listening. He can hear any slight change in the sounds surrounding him, and he can differentiate between different sounds and even smells. Rosaline Jumbo, how heavy is a lion mane? Very good question. Because nobody has ever measured, and it would be very tricky to get one to measure, I would estimate and I would think about, because I've worn a warrior's crest from a Maasai warrior, I've worn one, and it felt like around 2 to 2.5 kilos. I would assume when it's raw, when it's fresh, it can go up to around maybe 6 to 7 kilos. These ones was dry and it was not complete, it was half. So I would estimate, about maybe 6 kilos. It plays a very big role when, fighting, because it cushions the neck, protects all those, important arteries so that it doesn't get injuries. I spoke a little bit about warriors, headdress. In Maasai culture, some years back, it was a rite of passage for the warriors to go out there and find a big male lion like this and kill it. Might sound cruel, but those are traditions. And killing it was not for the faint-hearted. They would surround it with their bells, tied onto their ankles. They would actually try to stress it so it gets very aggressive. And with spears, they would spear it. Of course, there were fatalities and also serious injuries. I witnessed that. Killing this great beast is not a walk in the park. And so whoever killed it or whoever, speared it first would actually get the honor of getting the mane, and then the rest would share, some claws and even the tail. It was the ultimate experience of a Maasai warrior's life to go and kill this great animal. It is long gone, and they're trying to find alternatives to cover that ceremony. His brother, I don't know where he is, the small, younger Kijana, who's slightly younger, and it is normal for a lone male to find a coalition male so that they have a chance to be able to dominate a pride. Yes. Yeah, we have rain all over, but I'm hoping it can stay a little bit longer. Well, he looks very sleepy, but I'm hoping that either one of the females or maybe Kijana will appear, and I will stay here for a little bit longer.
Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve, where it is not dry at all in any way, shape or form. When Isaac said there is rain all over, yes, rain is all over. We are fully kitted up here, hoods, hats, waterproofs. We have our rain roof on. It's lovely driving and getting pelted with rain. But who am I? I am Lauren, and I do have Theo on camera. Now, we're on a bit of a mission. I don't want to tell you what the mission is because it might not be so successful. But we are hoping to head into Buffelshoek for, well, something very exciting. Now, because the weather has changed, so I actually probably can take this down now. Because the weather has changed so dramatically on us from that beautiful, hot, toasty morning to thunderstorms and a downpour, I'm not sure if my mission will be successful, but that's what I am doing today on this wonderful, delightful day today. So please do send in your questions. Keep us going. It's not easy being wet and, well, grey skies. It makes it a little bit tricky for you to spot things, but fingers crossed I will have something exciting for you very soon. I do feel like the sun's trying to pop its head out. I'm not sure it's going to be successful, but I do feel we are getting small little rays of sunshine now and again. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with my mission. Wish me luck.
Welcome back to the Mara. Our elephants are still slowly grazing and walking towards the bushes there. Sometime when it's almost raining, you can see that elephants will always walk into the bushes to shelter away from the rain. Today I haven't seen that many elephants walking from this direction. Seems like there's lots of forage where they normally come from. And so they hang around there and at least giving it sometimes 2 days, and then you see them walking back to the marshes and swamp. this looks like a small family. You can see the matriarch together with her sister, and then the rest of the family members. But I'm sure there might be some other elephants behind the bushes, because we have about 7 families that always come from this direction, heading back and forth. It's an advantage because it's cool. You can see they're not flapping as much, because that is one way they fan and cool themselves. But when the temperatures go low like now, they really much enjoy.
Olalashe is not getting up that quickly. I don't blame him. He ate quite well about 2 days ago. I think he downed a whole warthog, because when you saw him, I don't know if you remember, his tummy looked like he had swallowed a very extra large soccer ball. Lions can eat almost 40 kilograms of meat, and even 20 is not small amount of meat. And there's one thing about their bodies and actually their stomachs, it's like they're elastic. So they enlarge as they eat. Eating that keeps them full for up to 3-4 days, but they need to eat in about 7 days if they don't eat anything else. Without eating every other day, they don't get quite healthy as he is. And so conditions like the ones that they're facing right now, where it's very hard to come across large prey, they can deteriorate quite quickly. He needs just to top up a warthog every other day, and he is fine. His mane is quite, fully grown. I don't think it's gonna get bigger than that, but sometimes they do get larger than that. But this guy, I think the mane is going to remain the same. It's actually quite a beautiful mane, blonde and black. Sometimes they're just black, sometimes they're just blonde, but he's got a mixed colored mane. I'm sure he can hear the thunder. Jami, how old is this lion? He's called Olalashe, and Olalashe means friend or a friend. I don't know a friend to who, because not to us, definitely. I estimate that he's around 7 or 7+ years. That's when their mane is that big. He's at his prime. At this age, he's quite capable of ensuring that nobody takes over the females or come into his territory. The only thing right now that would threaten him is more than 2 males, like 3 or 4. But he's at his prime, and it's a time that the females feel quite protected, and that's how they actually come into season. When they have a male they feel is capable of protecting them. Yeah, he's got his eyes open because there's a vehicle approaching. I don't know if he's going to lift his head. These animals, or this lion or mo, have seen vehicles all their life. The Masai Mara was established in the late 40s as a national reserve, and you can imagine since then generations have seen vehicles, so they are not bothered unless you drive really fast towards them. Well, I think I'm going to try and pull down my flaps because the storm is approaching. Let's take you to another location.
Welcome back to the other side of the Mara. Our elephants are waiting patiently, watching over the storm. You can see they've just stopped and carry on grazing. They keep on moving from one patch to another and then slowly graze, then they move. So it's a routine that they always do, which is very interesting to observe. Not sure, do matriarchs fight for dominance? They don't fight for dominance. So what happens, everyone is responsible. Everyone just watches and follows her command. So there's no competition whatsoever when the matriarch is there. So what happens when herds split to form what we call bond groups or family bond? So each member of the family will just choose. They come sometime to a voting where they choose who will be their matriarch, but mostly you find the oldest female automatically becomes the matriarch. But if they're not happy with her, that is when they can choose another matriarch, but they don't fight for dominance.
Welcome back to Tswalu Kalahari. And what a fantastic afternoon it is here with the clouds just being extra creative. And then David focusing on this beautiful little plant. There's a few of them coming out now, obviously with the life-giving rains that we've received in the past couple of weeks. There will be areas that will be flushed by these little plants. Indigofera is the genus, and it is just such a stunning little plant at that. And that is fairly small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit closer here to just show you how tiny this little plant is. And look at that. Very complex little flower. You can see it's on this almost vertical cone-like stalk, and these flowers will be flowering basically in concession. You can see as time goes on, these flowers will continuously flower upright to the end or the tip of this section of the plant. Very easy to recognize. You can see the beautiful paddle-shaped like leaves, and also there's a nice fold in the central part of the leaves. Using leaves is very, very important when it comes to IDing not only plants like this, but especially trees, your larger botus species. The structure, the shape, even the color can be used as a very efficient form of identification. So there's one over there, there's another one over there, David. Just to the right of here, might be better view for you. And just a very beautiful tiny little plant. There's a few of these species. So there's a few, species within the genus. So you can get a variety of forms. And all out now because of the rains. So in the next few weeks, we are going to be seeing a few of these tiny little plants in full bloom. And there are some spectacular forms found, especially within Tswalu region itself. And if you take a look how small that plant is, the flower itself, you've got to think about the insect that would be pollinating this flower. Punch in there for us. So I'm just going to take this is very small, so be a very specialized individual that would be getting in there. Look there's an ant there. So ants play a vital role in terms of pollinating plants out here. It's a tiny little ant that's just scurrying in between the flowers, and obviously in that motion is just being covered with pollen. You'll have certain type of moths also in this region that would be responsible for a lot of business, a lot of pollinating out here. And Tswalu hosts quite a huge diversity of moths. Obviously, you like to be out here under the cover of darkness, and some of them are very specialized, especially when it comes to their feeding behavior. Some of them have proboscis. So we spoke about that. Proboscis is that rolled up like tube structure in the underside of the moth or butterfly's mouth or head, and some of them, the proboscis can be 3 to 4 times longer than that of the actual moth. So you've got to think about the agility of how that insect has to stabilize itself, with obviously factors of the wind and other insects, and then finding one tiny little spot in order to pollinate it. Fantastic.
We found a snake. Theo found it, actually. Sadly, because we repositioned the car, it's gone a little bit inside of this sort of fallen over tree. Now, it's very small. I don't know what species it is. The coloration looks a little bit like a rock python, but it's very, very small. I don't know if it's a juvenile or, unfortunately... Oh, it's moving. Come and see us, beautiful. It's a perfect weather for snakes to be moving. You see the scales all along the body, that muscular body. I wish it would come back out. I absolutely love snakes. I know not many people do. But I'm not sure we're going to get you better views of this one. You can see it breathing. You see the body moving in and out. It's breathing. It's covered in tough scales, which they have to shed and have to molt in order to grow. That's why you find snake skin everywhere. And not only does the scales, help the snake from dehydrating, keeps all the water in, prevents water loss, it also acts as armor, if you like. It really protects the snake. I wish it would come back out. We really don't see snakes here much. Sometimes in camp we do, but other than that we really don't. And so the dormancy period in snakes is referred to as brumation. And it's long sustained periods of inactivity. So it's normally over winter when the temperatures are just too cold for the snake to survive and be active. They're reptiles, remember, they're solar powered. And with snakes...
Henry from the corner getting mobile. Are there any updates?
Hello, Henry. Just going to turn my game drive radio down. So when snakes are brumating, they can actually occasionally stir if they require water. If they need water, they will wake up from their sort of temporary state of dormancy and they'll go in search with water that they find through smell, through chemical scent. So they can go months and months without water, but if they need it all of a sudden, then of course they can wake up out of this dormancy, seek water, and then go right back into their burrow and go back into that state of dormancy again. So the sort of state that The state of dormancy that reptiles go into is completely induced by low temperature. So as soon as the ambient temperatures get too low, that's the environmental cue that stirs the biological cue that tells the animal to go into a temporary state of dormancy. It's normally annual, it's normally seasonal. Chris, I'm not sure why a snake would be afraid of the rain. I don't think any organism is afraid of the rain, not even humans, really. It's just water, the liquid of life. And it's what is essential out here in this environment, in any environment, actually. And the reason we're seeing this snake is because of the water. So it's actually the opposite. It's out because of the moisture. It's still warm. It's very, very warm. The sun is starting to come out from somewhere. Oh my goodness, Theo, we've got blue sky. Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that. So yeah, Chris, the complete opposite. The reason we're seeing the snake and the reason it's out is because of the water. But sadly, I think we maybe startled it a little bit with our vehicle. But it's wonderful to see half of a snake. So now that summer is here, we have to be extra cautious in camp. Camps are perfect places for snakes to hide, and we get sort of a really wide range of species here. But I'm really not sure what one that is. It's very camouflage, blends in perfectly. That name, but you're saying very well camouflage. Yes, remarkably so. Some snakes are not. If you think of the green mamba or any of the very brightly coloured ones, but this snake is, whatever species this is, it looks very rock pythonous in terms of its coloration and its pattern. But I don't think it's going to come back out again, unfortunately. So I think we will continue on with our mission before the cloud cover comes back again and we lose all ambient light. There's a specific individual that I'm looking to find this afternoon. We're going to keep bumbling north, and hopefully I get lucky with this animal I want to see.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to andBeyond Phinda. My name is Grant, and behind the camera is Craig. And this afternoon we have come out once again to the open grassy sections or open grasslands of Phinda. And just recently, as recently as 2 days ago, a female cheetah was seen in this area with initially 5 really tiny little cheetah cubs, and then a day later, unfortunately, she's already down to 3. It is her first litter ever, so new mom, it's all a learning experience for her. So we've come out into the area where she was seen. We think the cubs are around about 2 months old, and so they are moving with mom already. So we've just been checking in some nice sheltered areas At the moment it is quite windy, so we would assume that Mom would be trying to keep the cubs nice and warm and out of the wind. It's quite overcast and cold, so I think they should be huddled up in a ball somewhere. Luco is asking, what kind of weather will a place like this receive? And Luco, we let me actually just show you a map quickly, which I'm sure some of you have already seen before. But on the map, I will be able to show you how close we actually are to the ocean. And because of the fact that we're quite close to the ocean, so right over there is Phinda. And we are in a straight line about 25 kilometers away from the Indian Ocean. And there is a warm current that flows down the east coast of South Africa like that. And it brings quite a lot of tropical weather from Mozambique and further north. And so every now and then we receive tropical storms, but most of our sort of fronts that we get in terms of like a cold front comes up from the south of Phinda. But generally quite a mild climate, actually very warm and very, very hot in summer. And but in winter very, very mild. We only get to down to about 12 degrees, so it's really, really nice and warm. And so as you can see, the vegetation is quite lush and green all year round. I can see some buffaloes in the distance, so I think Craig and I are going to go head in that direction and see if we can get another look at them.
All right, fantastic spot by David. So now I know he's not just standing there and looking good, he's actually working. There's something that he spotted within this tapestry of green. We want you folks just to see who can spot it first. David's going to give you a little bit of a closer view, and then let's see if you guys can spot it. It's very, very well camouflaged. I think David did put his eyes on today because that is a fantastic spot. And it's sitting quite close to the branch. Oh, and David says it's munching away. Oh, wow, look at that. So using the two front legs, pull the vegetation towards its mouth parts. These insects have chewing mouth parts. So that means that the mouth parts are external and they are specially designed to chomp down on vegetation. And you can see how well camouflaged it is within the mix of that vegetation. You can see the antenna protruding from its head. Obviously a sensory organ used to pick up certain chemicals, but then also used as a touch organ as well. And those very large eyes, look at that. Wow. So enjoying the tiny little paddle-shaped leaves from the blackthorn. You can see there the blackthorn seed pod that's developing just underneath it is almost about the same size as this insect. You can see it's an insect from its jointed legs, hence its big group terminology arthropoda, from Greek that means jointed legs, which is a very, very tremendous and very diverse group of organisms on the terrestrial basis. Priscilla, yes, it is a locust. Fantastic. So this is a desert locust, and it's found quite widely through South Africa. It's basically right through South Africa itself, and its cryptic coloration with the patternings and markings, that's how we could identify it. If you look at these insects, they have a variety of patterns and markings, and as well as colors that they come in. And that is a very important tool to keep this animal concealed while it's doing just what it is doing now, which is feeding. This is when something is most vulnerable, is when you are feeding, because this is when a predator can make a sneak attack. And that's where that cryptic coloration comes into vital play. So this species hardly ever swarms. You can have outbreaks where they can reach large numbers, but that's very rare occasion. Let's say it that. I've heard and read in North Africa they can become quite a pest, where they do form huge swarms, and then obviously that could be detrimental to that of crops. Djuma, are these locusts a pest in this area? No, not this specific species. So in South Africa they rarely swarm, whereas you would find a couple of hundred. But I mean, we're looking at swarms. Swarms can number the thousands and even times into millions, where they could be detrimental to that of crops, grain and wheat, you name it. But this specific species isn't responsible for major swarming within this area at all. In North Africa, just where I mentioned, there it can be a huge problem, where they do reach exponential proportions. So if you look at this insect, obviously locusts and grasshoppers, they're categorized into an order called Orthoptera, which is basically, you've got certain characteristics, and then you look at those characteristics and you kind of categorize an insect based on its physical form or what it possesses. So this might be mouth parts, it might be reproduction, and then from that you can categorize these very diverse groups within the insect order. But if you're looking at these insects, grasshoppers or locusts, so to say, can be separated into two different groups. And that is looking at those antennae, those long projections that are coming off of its head. So you get long-horned crickets, and hence the name long-horned crickets. They have longer antennae. And then you get short-horned grasshoppers and as well as locusts, which this would be one of your short-horned locusts. And he's just enjoying a little bit of vegetarian lunch. These guys are herbivores, so eating on vegetative matter. Rosalind, when do locusts mate? Like reptiles, they prefer the warmer periods of the year. If you look at biological activity, if you look at the available food, this is all favorable within the summer period. So this is where they would be moving around, and you'll find that these adults are fairly distinctive. You can see this is an adult from its general size. It also has the amazing ability of flight. So with the abundance of food now, the animal can move around. Also by evading predation, it uses its remarkable flight ability, but also to get to a food source where you are not detrimentally affecting young individuals, which is very important within insects. And so what they'll do is they'll accumulate the food they need, and from here they'll go out in search of a respected partner. From there they'll mate, and then the eggs will more than likely be laid in the soil with this species. And then you're looking at about a month or so, and then they hatch as what they refer to as nymphs. So within the life cycle of insects, the major scope of insects are broken up into life cycles, depending on how it changes from egg to adult. So some insects like butterflies go through what they refer to as a hollow metabolic life cycle, where the whole body is changed. So from caterpillar to butterfly, that's a very different scheme. Whereas in grasshoppers, the young actually resemble that of the adults. So they don't go through a massive transformation. Hemimetabolic is what, as they refer to as. But really remarkable insects. So when this individual does find a mate, when they do lay eggs and the young hatch, the young will resemble that of the adult. It'll look like a miniature version of this individual here that you're looking at right now. And now the temperature is perfect for insect activity. So when the eggs are laid, obviously it'll be multiple eggs. You'll have, they call them instars actually. So where this young individual will molt and physically grow out of its smaller exoskeleton. And the exoskeleton is very important to keep everything functioning for this insect. What was that? So the wings are actually laying against the animal's body now. They're just tucked up along the legs. It's just out of view. Ooh. Sassy Cassie, what predators will eat this locust? You would find birds, a wide variety of birds would see this as a very nice and tasty meal, and as well as mammals. If a little meerkat, if we had to be following the rock stars and the rock star had to come across this little individual, he will not hesitate on taking it in for a little tasty meal. So, and if you take a look at some insects, they are very clever. So they can, through time, over time, they've evolved or changed, to deter and have kind of strategies to deter predation. Whereas, and that is a form of color. So what they refer to as aposematic coloration. As in, that is a warning, a visual sign to say, watch out. Whereas in this chap over here, you can see it's uniform. So it more than likely doesn't possess any toxins or poisons. So it shouldn't be bad for a little tummy like a bird or a mammal.
Complete change in the weather. The sun is now out. We've lifted our flaps up on the rain roof and we've came to one of the dams in Buchelshoek. Now it's very quiet. Most of the mammals will be drying off. The reptiles will be coming out of whatever hidey hole to charge their solar panels. So we're just going to sit here for a minute and listen to all the wonderful sounds of the animals drying off. A nice wind coming through as well now. Hopefully the sun will stay up. Well, it's obviously going to go down at some point, but you know what I mean. But the rain stays off. That's what I'm hoping for this afternoon. I think we'll have a higher chance of finding more animals. So I'm going to continue on with my mission for now.
All right, got a better view of this wonderful grasshopper. So I got caught up in my own thoughts there. So a wide range of birds would snack on this little grasshopper, and then as well as a few mammals would quickly take this as an easy snack. But it does have the advantage of a flight, which is a great way of escaping predation. And as well as, if you look very closely, I think it's tucked up there now. You can't really see its legs. So grasshoppers and locusts, not all of them, but the majority, yes, you can see So insects, 3 pairs of legs, and you can see the back set. Look how strong and how large that hind set is. And that there would be an amazing advantage. If a predator come up over here and that animal needed to make a quick getaway, it basically spring loads itself from a standstill up into the air. And that is a very quick way of evading predation. And it's just moving very slowly. So all of these guys within this group have chewing mouthparts. That's also characteristic through this Orthoptera group. As in most primitive forms of insects, they have chewing mouthparts. And this group with the short-horned individuals, they would lay many eggs in a pod in the soil. And obviously a couple of weeks to about like a month or so for development, and then the young would hatch resembling that of this adult here. Oh, he's creeping away. Slow movements, eh? If you make quick movements, a predator will pick you up. But if you move, look, he's stretching his leg. Wow. Oh, wow. Well, he's just said to us, no, that's about it. Also, can you still see it, David? You can. Oh.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I see that. Very beautiful insect. And then just above that very large hind leg, you can see this uniform elongated plate. Those are covers that are covering the wings, which would be hidden underneath those thin plate-like slates, let's say it that. And flight is a remarkable ability, only achieved 3 times through the history of evolution. Obviously, insects being the first to take to the air. Then you would have had that of mammals also achieving flight. But before that, it would be obviously birds. So insects, birds, and then mammals. And it is a very, very efficient ability from moving from one point to another, but evading predation, and as well as finding a mate. Because imagine just finding a partner so small, such as this insect. It's not small, it's about 4 or 5 centimeters in length, but just in the scope of Tswalu, finding a representative that is eligible to mate with it must be a very tricky task. Oh, how long do they live for? Great question. I would say an insect of this size would maybe live for 3-4 months, maybe a little bit longer. As we've spoken about, a general size, as the organism gets bigger, so it has a lengthier lifespan. But I would give it a rough guesstimation, so that's an educated guess. I'm really just pulling one out of the hat here. I would say about 3 to 4 months that this beautiful insect would be able to live for. And that is just enough. If you think about it, that is not too long, but not too short. Because if you had an insect like this that chomps down in vegetation, and then you had, extraordinary amount of them, so a high production of them, you would obviously start affecting vegetation. So, the shorter the lifespan, the easier it is on the ecosystem. Everything out here is in a balance. So not just the lifespan of this insect, but the production of the leaves, the production and length of the seed pods after the flowers. It's remarkable how finely balanced everything is out here. All right, for now, we're going to send you off to one of our colleagues, and we will see you back at Tswalu.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everyone. And we were heading towards those buffaloes that I mentioned to you earlier that we had spotted. And we've come across this journey of giraffe that are, walking around in some pretty short vegetation, so they're all having to bend their necks down quite low to get at any of the leaves. I did count 11, but I think there might be more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 16. And they're all sort of just moving together. They don't really have a direction that they're moving in. But you'll notice that any of the giraffe that are facing away from us, you'll see that the back of their ears is very, very white. And that's one of the ways that it's not really needed now because they quite a height above the vegetation surrounding them. But when they are moving through taller trees, those white ears they really stick out, and so the other giraffes use them to follow the leader, basically. And it's more important for a youngster to be able to follow mom. I'm just having a look. Oh, there's some zebras mixed in amongst the giraffes as well, and a couple of them are just calling every now and then. So for the zebra, you can imagine it's quite difficult for them in here. It's not an open grassland that they're used to. It's got quite a lot of shrub mixed in amongst the grass, but the grass is really lush here at the moment. So the zebras are capitalizing on the lush green grass that's in amongst these shrubs, and the giraffes are obviously feeding on the leaves of the shrub. And I was just having a look at all of these giraffe and trying to see what gender they are, and it seems like there's pretty much a half and half split of males and females. Now, some of you may know that they don't necessarily form herds or strict herds that they stick with, but as they're moving and feeding, they might come across other giraffes, male or female, and decide to move with them, and there's no real time frame for that. They'll just move with them for a couple of days. There's a zebra scratching on a dead tree there. It's just moving off. Classic. So they don't stick in that herd for a permanent time frame or a specific time frame. Yeah, I agree, Delian. They do look very relaxed. There are a couple of them, well, the two that were closest to us were just looking over our backs at something, I don't know, that could have been in the bushes below, but I've had a quick look behind us and I do see a guinea fowl, a helmeted guinea fowl up in a tree, and just based on that, I don't think it was anything. I think they might have spotted the guinea fowls moving around, but the guinea fowl is quiet, and now if a guinea fowl had seen something like a predator, it would have been making an alarm call. It's a pretty cool view. I am going to just reposition us. I hope it doesn't fly away. If it flies away, we'll come back to these giraffes. But it's quite a cool view of a helmeted guinea fowl. It's actually up in a tree, which is quite unusual. No, still there. That's not somewhere you typically see a helmeted guinea fowl. And I thought initially maybe the guinea fowl was spooked by something down below. But like I said, if there was something that spooked the guinea fowl, caused it to go up like a predator, like a lion or a leopard, oh, and there he goes. Then he would have been making a noise, making an alarm call, and of course would not have just gone back down towards the area where it had come from. So I'm just going to turn us again, and we're going to have a look at those giraffes. And there's quite a big group of zebra now coming out that I think were mixed in amongst the giraffes. And they're just coming out on the other side of the valley. And I think the giraffes are following. Oh no, it actually seems like the giraffes are moving from our left to right. And the zebras are moving away from us. But it is a really peaceful scene, the giraffes just moving through the shorter vegetation. And you see those zebras grazing at the back there with their tails wagging. Time Walker is asking, are those giraffes all related? So that's what I was touching on earlier, is basically giraffes move freely. They don't form a strict herd. They won't stay with their mom for life like some of the other antelope species. And especially young bulls, they will move off and possibly join up with other bulls and learn from them and practice their fighting skills, and then look for females that are receptive or ready to mate, and then they will compete for the mating rights. But typically giraffes that just randomly come together are not related, and I didn't see any younger giraffes there that might still be with their mom. But typically young giraffes will actually only stay with their mom for about 2 to 3 years, at which point mom will actually be ready to give birth again, and by that stage usually the youngster has moved away, and so they don't stick together as a herd. And so it's very possible that some of these giraffes that we're looking at are related, but more than likely they're not related. They've just come together for feeding, just because this area is really, really lush and green at the moment. So I think for now, Craig and I are going to carry on and see if maybe we can get a view of those buffaloes. They do seem a little bit far from the road, so we'll have a look and see if we can get a view of them. So of course these giraffes were really easy to spot, but we actually had no idea initially that there were all these zebras moving around in amongst them. And you can imagine for the zebras, with this pretty thick vegetation around them, the giraffes, being much taller, can see over the bushes, but the zebras will feel a little bit more vulnerable because of the fact that they obviously can't see very far. And so they might stick with the giraffes just as a safety aspect or safety element, because they all know that, and they'll watch the behavior of the giraffes. The giraffes don't typically make a noise. They usually don't make any noise. But when they have seen a predator, they will stop what they're doing, stop feeding, and they'll stand absolutely motionless, and they will stop chewing even if they were busy ruminating or if they were busy feeding, and they will stop whatever they were doing and just watch the predator. A little bit out of curiosity, but also just to make sure that the predator is not trying to stalk them. And so the zebras will keep an eye on the giraffes, and if they see that the giraffes have stopped feeding and maybe have noticed something, then the zebras will do the same and just keep their wits about them and make sure that there's nothing coming to get them. See all the giraffes filing through there at the moment. On many different sizes and colors of the giraffes that we're looking at. So I think there could be a few that might be related. Some younger ones that might be still following their mom, but it's more than likely just a mixed herd. So yeah, I think Craig and I for now we are going to go and see if we can get a look at those buffaloes.
So there is some super weird stuff happening over here. We can't really explain it just yet. You just have to watch and see. I know it's pretty dark right now because we've just arrived and the sun is directly behind them. But what you're seeing is two male giraffes, and one of them was mounting the other, and there was apparently stampeding going on, and there's some zebras around and wildebeest. It's very odd. We're just going to watch and see how this develops, because it's something that I certainly would never have seen. Oh, and now they're fighting. Sometimes you can't tell the difference. Mating and fighting, it's all the same, really. Oh, there's some impalas running around. It's all happening right here now. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike. Behind the camera is BK. You're joining us at Eco Training's Pride Lands Conservancy, where we're on impala clearings just opposite the Eco Training camp, watching some pretty weird stuff going on. What we're going to do in a moment is reposition the vehicle so that we can maybe see a bit more of the action without too much of the sun's glare behind us, or behind them rather. But it is very odd. We've got at least how many giraffes did you say you saw here? Like 10? Like 10 giraffes? There's heaps of them. There's like a lot of giraffes. There's some all the way down there at the back. There's some to the left here. There's like zebras. There's a whole bunch of impalas that are running around, as well as our eco-training students that are also joining us in the sighting. What we're going to do is we're going to try and reposition, because, oh, maybe not, we're not going to reposition just yet. There is too much stuff going on. We can't reposition just now, but we will in a moment. You can see the lovely silhouettes of those giraffes as they neck each other. So those are what they do when they are... Well, these are just sparring. They're not having a proper fight. Not yet, anyway. It hasn't developed into that. They're just sparring, testing out their strength. They both look fairly young. The zebras seem interested. Just watching this all happening in front of them. Perhaps they want a bit of the action. Phenak, I don't know how many giraffe I've ever seen in one sighting before. This is fairly a few of them. There might be about 10 here. I think I've seen probably around about 20 before in one place, but spread about in a vast open area. Especially if you go to places like East Africa, Kenya and the Masai Mara, you'll see lots and lots of giraffes spread about the plains quite often. Here it's a bit more tricky because, as you can see, there's lots of vegetation around us. So we don't often see the giraffes out in the open like this. But when we do see big groups of giraffes, it's usually because there are lots of males that have come together for something like this to spar. Or there might be some females in the area which have attracted the attention of the males, and they're trying to get mating opportunities. We even sometimes see giraffes joining together in creches. The mothers might bring 2 or 3 youngsters into an area so that they can look after them together, but it never usually lasts very long. It's very short-lived, maybe just a few days before they separate and go their different ways. So you can see there's another 2 just over there. Also looks like a male and a female. That male actually looks a bit larger than the other 2, so he might be slightly more dominant, and therefore that's why he's feeding closer to that female. Perhaps he doesn't need to fight for this one, for the attentions of that female right now. It's quite interesting, the 2 zebras watching very closely those 2 giraffes fighting. I'm not sure if those are male zebras or females. I can't tell from this distance. I think there has been a stallion and a mare hanging about this area. You can see the wind is picking up slightly. We just had a big, oh, here comes a giraffe galloping across, chasing the zebra. That's the weirdest thing. So this is the kind of weird behavior we were talking about. Why does it keep doing that? We have no idea. So we just had a big storm come through. It wasn't a lot of rain, but it was a lot of wind. There was a bit of thunder and lightning, and it's just freshened everything up, brought the temperature down, and maybe that's why the animals are getting a bit more active, because everything is just cooling off just a little bit. But who knows how it will develop. You can actually see, well, you can't see it so clearly because of where the sun is, but the clouds are moving quite quickly across the sky. We're expecting maybe a bit more rain will fall a bit later, and that'll be interesting to see how that affects how the animals behave. Well, those 2 are not giving up. In fact, it looks like they're getting a little bit more aggressive with their fighting. This is often the case when youngsters start sparring. 1 or 2 hits land a bit hard, and they get harder and harder until eventually one or the other will give up and move off, and you'll have a victor. Well, we're not going to go anywhere. We might reposition the vehicle just to see if we can get a slightly better angle. But we're going to stay in this clearing and see what else happens.
Welcome back. Lovely female ostrich. I nearly said giraffe. Ostrich here in view, strolling through the grassy plains, and would be eating on various types or parts of grass now, even succulents, flowers. Very large bird. You can see from the color of the plumage that this is a female. A male would be jet black with white wingtips. As we can see, that female's got this uniform dark brown color to her. We've been hearing a lot of giraffe now. The past week and a half, we picked up quite a lot of vocalization on giraffe and on ostrich. And it's a very distinctive sound. It can be mistaken for a lion call sometimes. From a distance, it could be easily mistaken for a lion call. But it's a very distinctive 3-syllable boom or booming sound. And once you've heard it, you'll never forget it again. It's a very unique sound made by a bird, and obviously something that is really efficient out in these environments. I am still in total awe on how green it is, folks. It is such a blessing to be able to show you guys how green this place really is right now.
So you can see our 2 young male giraffes are still having a bit of a pushing and shoving match, punching at each other with those stubby horns on top of their head, or ossicles, and then the much larger male is moving in behind, more of a silhouette than anything else that you can see. It's a very difficult location for us to film in because of the position of the sun. It's It's actually amazing to watch them. We're actually very close to them, probably not much more than about 20 meters. And they're paying us no attention at all. They're really focused on what they're doing. And you can see every now and again their blows get a little bit harder, but mostly they're quite ceremonial. It's like a practice session that they're having right now. They're practicing for the real deal, which can be incredibly painful. When giraffes fight over a female, and it's an aggressive fight, they can actually knock themselves and each other down and break bones, break their necks, even give themselves concussion. It's a serious thing. But these two are more or less just simulating a real fight, building the muscles and the movements that will eventually make them able to win the dominance of a female. They certainly do sometimes break their neck when they fight. It's not that it would happen it doesn't happen often because, they're designed for it. Their necks are very strong and muscular and quite flexible, actually. They don't look it when they're standing up tall, but they can almost bend their necks all the way around to touch their flanks. So they are quite flexible and quite strong, but it does happen occasionally. Every now and again, we'll see a giraffe that has died lying on the ground without any visible signs of where a predator has attacked it. And that is most likely because of a fight. They've knocked themselves out, fallen over, and perhaps whilst they've been knocked out, something has happened to them, or they've broken their neck. Something like that. It doesn't happen often, though. But this year, in fact, we found two giraffes on Pride Lands, one on Pride Lands and one on Kwenga, just next door, where we had those lions yesterday, which had died seemingly of completely natural causes. Now, it's unusual for a giraffe to die of old age, or for any animal to die of old age in the wild. It would most likely have been caused because of a fight, because they were both males. But it doesn't happen often. So some of these blows, even though they're quite soft, you can see the whole body sort of jarring as they smack into each other. And sometimes if there's not so much wind like there is today, and you're sitting maybe 50 meters away, you can hear the impact. It sounds just like if you would take a sledgehammer or a baseball bat or something and smash it into the side of, a piece of rubber, or, if you had like in those old movies like Rocky, where he punches the carcass hanging in the abattoir. It sounds just like that. It's this meaty thud, and it's really painful. And they can cause some serious contusions or bruising under the skin, and they can do it so hard that they actually rip the skin open. Charles, giraffe are not territorial, so most of their fights are to do with females. It would be very rare for giraffes ever to fight over a resource other than mating opportunities. So if there's a female who's in estrus, some males in the area might smell her urine or approach her. And if there are a number of individuals who are of a similar size and they can't easily visually identify who is stronger, then there'll be a fight. But mostly, as we saw, there was a larger giraffe there. He didn't have to fight with these two, and that's because he's much larger. They wouldn't even bother to try and dominate him because he would clearly win. So it's almost always to do with females. They're not territorial at all. They have a home range, an area which they usually won't leave. They'll stay within a certain area to find food and water, but they won't fight with others over it.
We have found ANSELL, our female leopardess, up the same marula tree that she had her kill. She's in the exact same position. There's absolutely nothing left of that kill other than skin. Now, this was not our mission. I just want to clarify. But so far, no luck. So we thought we'll come and see ANSELL, and then maybe we can try again a little bit later. The weather will definitely have changed animals' daily activities. Whatever they had planned in the morning, I am sure changed as soon as the rain came. Isn't she lovely? She's probably thinking, what on earth is happening to today? We had glorious sunshine, then we went through a thunderstorm, then a downpour, and now there's sunshine with a very, very strong wind. That looked like an extremely good stretch. Oh my goodness, look at that tummy. She is bulging. Now, she's very easy to recognize, and the eye injury, I believe, did come from mating. It was from another claw, which is the most sort of likely of all explanations anyway. Now, I'm slightly baffled. There's a species of hornbill, and I can't look at this. Is it the grey or the red that keeps feeding on the skin? I am shocked at this, but we're positioned quite far away, and I can't see if it's the grey hornbill or the red-billed. It keeps picking something off from the whatever's left of the carcass and then flying off again. What are you going to do, ANSELL? With that full belly, I don't imagine you can do very much. Oh, you can scratch. Now, there's obviously speculation that ANSELL technically could be pregnant. She was seen mating to Ghana not so long ago. Her pushing her little tongue out like that. She's now too hot. Did the hornbill come back? Theo spotted it. Looks like a red-billed. What is it doing on this carcass? That's our rain roof, everyone. Now, just a reminder to you all, in case you haven't heard this already, we do have a very exciting new initiative taking place at WildEarth. So please do head over to wildearth.tv/explorers to see what this exciting new initiative is all about. All the details are on the website, and you can read all about it. So please go and check that out. Yes, you too, ANSELL. She's a very relaxed female, a very beautiful female. She's older. She's 12 years old. So she's younger than Tandy, but she's still a much older leopardess. And I don't know if the density of dominant females in the West sort of pushed her to this floaty existence. I mean, our location is very, very far northeast on Buffelshoek. And it's a very long distance from where she originally came from. So why she's sort of taken up residence here, it's not really fully understood. Was it for mating?
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties we had a little bit at Djuma. But we have managed to get a little bit closer to these buffaloes. And they are just moving around and feeding. but there are a couple of them that have not taken their eyes off us. Particularly this big bull. And if you look just over the bull's right shoulder, you'll see that there's actually a tiny little calf standing very close to its mom. And I think it might be, yeah, it's suckling. It's actually just busy drinking milk from its mom. I've been trying to get a good look at that calf. It looks really, really small, but I'm not too sure exactly how old it is. It looks like it's quite covered in mud. So it's visited a mud wallow recently with this herd. So definitely a few weeks old already, probably. Oh, and there's a buffalo lying down now as well. So the conditions at the moment are a little bit chilly, and we've got quite a strong breeze blowing from the south, which is where we get our cold weather from. And these buffaloes are just down in a little valley, slightly sheltered from that southerly wind that's blowing. And with those big ears, the wind will make quite a lot of noise on their ears, and it will dry their nose out and their eyes out, so they want to be in a sheltered area. And I think for the day today they've been resting on this ridge side out of the wind. Some of them not quite ready to get up yet. That one has pushed the snooze button and lay back down, but most of them are feeding. And they're slowly actually feeding down the ridge towards us. And this is quite typical behavior of buffaloes, of the Phinda buffaloes at this time of day, and most other buffaloes, is to get up in the afternoon and start feeding, and possibly start heading towards some water. Especially in summer, they'll drink twice a day, and then after their evening drink, they might find a place to lie down and rest a little bit towards the sort of the middle of the night, and then get up early in the morning, usually before sunrise even, start to feed again, find some water, and then slowly wind down again, find a nice shady spot, or depending on the weather conditions, find a spot that's good to rest for the day. Simon is asking why buffaloes are so dangerous. And Simon, well, there's a few reasons why. So buffaloes are very big and powerful animals. So this big bull that we're looking at that's staring us down, busy chewing, he's probably in the region of about 700, maybe up to 800 kilograms. And he's pure muscle, and so when he does come into contact with a person, can do a lot of damage relatively easily. Another reason why is because buffalo bulls, when they leave the herd usually twice in their life. So once when they are sort of past their adolescence and they get kicked out by the older bulls in the herd, then they will go and find other bulls, and they'll form bachelor groups. And those bulls that move together, they are quite defensive and quite nervous and on edge. So with the herd, the females are very alert. There's lots of eyes and ears looking around and listening, and they use their smell as well to detect danger. And at most signs, or at most when they become alert of danger or to danger, they will run away, a herd. But because of the fact that there's so many of them, they can detect danger quite easily, and then they will run away. When they form those bachelor groups of bulls, they become really dangerous because there's fewer of them, and so when danger does approach them, they usually figure it out too late, and so they're less likely to run and more likely to defend themselves. And the problem is, if they do detect a person being around, then those bulls will actually, instead of running away, they will investigate, and they see us as a threat, and so they will try to kill us and remove us intentionally to get rid of a threat. Because then once the threat is gone, then they know that that's one less threat that they have to worry about. They also rest in pretty thick areas during the day, and so when people are moving and maybe doing a bushwalk and walking through the bush, then they can come across those bulls lying down in some shade, and those bulls are not going to run away. They will defend themselves and try to remove the threat, like I said. So those are just a few of the reasons why buffaloes are dangerous. It's a really peaceful scene, just listening to them at the moment, chewing, moving through the vegetation. You can hear them breaking branches every now and then. Are lions the only animal or predator that can prey on buffalo? So mostly yes. Lions and buffaloes are sort of eternal enemies. Buffaloes, if they manage to find young lions or lion cubs, they will try to kill the lion cubs. But more especially the lions hunting the buffaloes. So there's prides of lions that actually they follow herds of buffaloes and look for opportunities to hunt them. But there's stories as well of big male leopards following herds of buffaloes, looking for small little calves that are moving with the herd, and then they will try to snatch one of those little calves, but it will have to be a really big leopard, and the situation will have to be really, really ideal, maybe with a big tree close by, and the leopard would have no time to actually suffocate and kill that buffalo calf. It will have to just grab it and run straight up a tree. And then also hyenas, big clans of hyenas will be able to prey on a weaker buffalo, so they'll single out a older or very young buffalo, or maybe a slightly ill or injured buffalo. Usually the vulnerable buffaloes in the herd will be taken, especially by lions, but more especially by hyenas if they manage to find one in a herd. And so hyenas have also been known to prey on the more weak buffaloes. The buffaloes are feeding, and some of them are lying down, but I don't think they're going to be going anywhere soon, and there's not going to be too much changing or anything really happening over here. So Craig and I are going to move on from here. We haven't given up on the cheetah mom with the tiny cubs, so we'll check a few more areas for her, and hopefully we get lucky this afternoon.
So So in thinking that ANSELL was far too full and nothing additional could fit into that belly, I was wrong. I didn't think there was anything left of this impala. But, oh, crunch, crunch. Someone's hungry. Now, I saw a hyena run off, but not close enough to get a good look at who the hyena could be. Oh, crunchy, crunchy. ANSELL, my beautiful girl, you are hungry. My goodness me. I really didn't expect to find her. We were actually looking for a different leopard. And we knew she was somewhere in this area. Trishala had her the other night, but I really didn't expect her to still be here on the same carcass. Be nice to spend a lot of time with her though and see if she does display any territorial behavior. If she does, then she's obviously claiming territory here up in Buffelshoek. If she really doesn't, then maybe she is living as a bit of a floater, a bit of a nomad. Wouldn't it be lovely if she had cubs up on Buffelshoek? Now, we don't know if she's pregnant, of course, it's just speculation, but she was definitely seen. Oh. Where's the hyenas? You're missing your moment, guys. That's what the hyenas wait for. Ever so patient. She'll eat most of it. I don't think she will crunch through all the bones. Leopards don't really swallow every single bone like hyenas do. She will crunch through some bits of bone, but she won't eat the entire skeleton. It's highly doubtful she'll eat the hooves, and she'll leave the skin. The skin does nothing for leopards. And normally how it works with cats is very fascinating, that they go for the internal organs first. So when they first meet the kill, I know it doesn't sound so pleasant, but it's actually the internal organs that host or hold all the vitamins and minerals that are really essential to a cat's diet. If you think about muscle tissue, it's really just protein. Muscle fibers. You're not going to be able to sustain living on just protein. A high protein diet is good, but an all protein diet, no, that's not going to be sustainable. So that's exactly why they go for the organs that harbors all the delicious nutrition that they need. And they get lots of fat. Animal fats, healthy fats from inside the flesh as well. So it's a high protein diet. So they'll eat all the organs first, then they'll move out to the sort of muscles and the fatty tissues that surround all the organs. It's a very low carb diet. But of course, they need glucose. They need carbs. It's not possible to sustain it without it. They need to fuel their brains. They need to fuel their bodies. So they can actually synthesize glucose themselves from various different amino acids. And they metabolize it into glucose. Oh, and Sally, this does not look very stable, my dear. So by synthesizing their own glucose, like, oh my goodness, look at those claws. You see the protective sheath, that sort of top part? Oh, I just got a waft of that smell. Can you smell it, Theo? That's the sheath that we talk about, and that's where the claws spend most of their time, inside that protective sheath. Wow. Oh. She's trying to grab it. Now what are you going to do? Leopards will eat very putrid and I don't even know the words. I'm smelling what I can smell right now. It's very, very unpleasant, but really nothing will deter them. They'll eat very putrid carcasses that have been decaying for a very long time, so there's not... Woo! Did you hear that land? She knows she's dropped some items. I have no idea what she dropped, but it's part of the carcass. And yes, there's not a specific length of time that a leopard would avoid a carcass, really. Of course, they prefer fresh carcass. What are you doing, Mr. Hornbill? I can't make out what that hornbill has in his beak. Are you the one that keeps coming to the carcass here, Mr. Hornbill? Okay, and Sally's on the move. I'm not sure she's going to go too far, though. I think she may just be going to this mound up here. Let's see. Yeah, she didn't even make it to the mound. So I think we will reposition, as this carcass is very unpleasant to be sitting underneath, and we'll get better views of Anselle.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everyone. And we have decided to stick with these buffaloes because just as we were wanting to move off, a few of them got up and started coming closer to us, investigating us. And now what's happening is the wind is blowing from the buffaloes, to us. So they haven't really been able to work out exactly who or what we are. Usually by smell they will be able to tell that we're potentially a threat, and they'll tend to keep their distance from us. They definitely see us because their eyesight is really, really good, and they can definitely hear us. But they've just been quite curious, and a number of them have not looked away from us. So they've just been staring at us, watching every move that we make. And a couple of them started actually running away and almost waiting for the rest of the herd to follow them, and they realized that the rest were not running away, and so they kind of just calmed down and went back to whatever they were doing.
Well, I've caught this impala at a bit of an awkward moment. He was standing very majestically, but now I realize he was just about to use the loo. Well, this male impala is following a small group of females who also had a very tiny youngster, which I'm hoping will just cross the road in front of us here. They seem to be moving in that general direction. Very small impala lamb, probably just a few days old, if that. We've seen quite a lot of them recently. I think, BK, we saw, 5 or 6 of them in a group this morning. So most of the impala females are starting to give birth now, and I think in the next 2 weeks we'll see a huge explosion of babies everywhere. And then most of them will have given birth in that 2-week period, and it won't be much longer after that that we'll see maybe 1 or 2 born, but it should be mostly done. But it looks like they've changed direction maybe. They're very shy. When the mothers first give birth, they'll usually move their lamb, or they'll give birth away from the herd, and it'll be a few days, or at least a day, before they rejoin the herd. And so what we saw here was, I think, just 3 female impalas, 1 male, and a baby. So it might be that because of all this wind and the storm that came through, that little piece of a herd got separated, and now they're trying to get their way back to the rest of the herd. But we'll never know. We'll just have to keep driving and find out.
So she's having a groom now. It's grooming time. Which is very nice to watch when a leopard does this. It's a normal routine. When you finish eating, you climb down from a tree, you start grooming. Now, going back to nutrition, because it's actually really fascinating. In terms of carbs, it's not a completely, the wind really picked up here. It's not a completely carb-free diet that cats have out here, because sometimes they will eat the plant matter that's possibly in the prey's stomach. Maybe not intentionally, but they'll swallow some, and they'll actually get carbohydrates from that, from the herbivores. But in terms of vitamins, cats actually need a different range of vitamins in comparison to other animals. And the vitamin sort of nutritional requirements is normally defined on a per species basis. So it's not the same across the board for every single species. And cats generally don't need ascorbic acid, and ascorbic acid is vitamin C. We obviously eat oranges or eat our carrots or take tablets, but they have... Oh, that was a fast reaction. But the official name is ascorbic acid, and their bodies actually can synthesize it just like glucose from the carbs that they get from the prey. So they don't need to eat fruit, and that's how they're a hyper carnivore. They don't need to subsidize with fruit or anything like that. They don't need to be omnivores. Their bodies do all the work. So they have a very high protein diet, minimal carbs, but some carbs are present. They get all their fatty acids and other minerals from the organs. And then they synthesize their own glucose, and they synthesize their own vitamin C, ascorbic acid. She is so beautiful. I wonder what she keeps hearing. I don't hear anything. Megan, yes, she's missing an eye, but she's still gorgeous. Absolutely. Imperfections are beautiful. Nobody wants to be perfect. It gives a real character. And ANSELL actually means ruthless or no sympathy. So that's quite a strong name for a leopard that has one eye. I'm not sure when she sustained this injury. But she's survived and thrived, just like Hukumuri, just like Purple Eye, just like Blue Eye. A lot of the cats actually get injuries to their eyes, very easy from those sharp claws. And it normally comes from mating rather than fighting. Mating's an aggressive affair, as it is. And an accidental claw to the eye is so detrimental. Oh my goodness, she is so full. Excuse the rain roof pole. We have a polecat. I hope one of you laughed at that. Oh, and Sally laughed. Now we'll try and follow her, but our signal's a little bit tricky here. So we'll just have to go with the flow, I'm afraid. And hopefully we can keep up with her for a little bit longer.
Well, welcome back. So just before we get tapped into anything else, I would just like to talk on the life cycles. I mentioned that beautiful insect displayed a reproductive cycle called hemi-metabolic. All right, so just taking a look at over here, when we were looking at the grasshopper, it would have displayed a hemi-metabolic life cycle, which you would have had egg, an individual that represented the adult. It would have gone through instars and then fully formed adult. As in where a butterfly, it goes from egg, caterpillar, pupa. So it physically changes its form inside this little capsule, breaking its whole body up and rearranging all the parts to finally emerge as a fully grown adult. Pretty remarkable. There is another life cycle displayed by more primitive insects, which is ametabolic, but that's another story for another day. So from those life cycles, then we categorize them, we almost fine-tune them, find very close related characteristics, where then we group these insects into other orders. But I just want to show you something else. We just stopped the vehicle. And we want to show you this lovely thing. We took a look at this lovely plant a couple of weeks ago, and it's fairly easy to recognize. It's got a very fern-like appearance. You can see it almost looks fern-like, but it's not. It's part of the pea family, and very easy to recognize via these beautiful leaves. Look at that. Bipinnately compound, so the leaf is broken up into many little leaflets. And this is where the appearance of a fern comes into play. This is a plant referred to as eland's bean. We'll look at the flower now. It's basically like the single stem that comes out the ground, but the eland's bean is referred to as this over here. It's very large seed pod. I mean, this is still a very young one. This would grow to about yay big and would get a bit thicker, and hence the name eland's bean. Eland obviously being a very, very large antelope in Africa, and then bean is the shape of this beautiful seed pod. So the shape and the size and then the shape of this beautiful capsule or vessel. Very important structure over here to spread one's genetic value. And then if you take a look at the rootstock is quite amazing. When this is fully flourished and at a point to disperse, we can actually ground that up and actually use that as a substitute for coffee. I haven't tried. There's a lot of things that I would rather pass by than actually physically give it a go. But this plant has a very extensive underground root, and the root can be so large, it can be up to 8 meters in length. So that's very, very big. And there would be a a connection between this one and this one. And if you find bigger patches, I mean, if you look over here, if David can just give us a view across this beautiful green landscape, you can see the distinctive color and shape of this elandsbean everywhere. And these clumps would all be interconnected from this very extensive rootstock. It is unpalatable. And I've also read accounts of this specific plant actually being toxic to that of livestock. And I've never seen anything eat on this very, very fragile looking plant because of its high amount of tannin, which is obviously a big deterrent to that of herbivores. Oh, nice butterfly. Right by your knee. Oh, what is that? Oh la la. Very fast flying butterfly, my word. So a very, very beautiful plant, and sometimes can give you the very false interpretation that we've received a lot of rain. We have received decent rain, and we are waiting for some more. But this plant is what we refer to as a perennial. So it can live for more than a year. Obviously, having this very extensive underground structure, that is where this plant will store all of its valuable nutrients and energy, and then also producing these flowers in even unfavorable periods where there's no rain. So it can give you a very false interpretation, unlike now that is just very, very green from all the rain that we have received. So elandsbean, very beautiful plant. And let's take a look over here. We actually got a flower right over here. Can we come this way, Dev? If you're going to make it there. Ooh. Rosalind, that is a great question. How many plants are in Tswalu? I'm going to have to do a little tally up, and I'm going to have to get back, Rosalind, on that one. How many plants are in Tswalu? I'm going to have to take a look and actually make sure, because I would be lying to you if I told you a specific number. But being in an arid area like this, you would think there'd be a minimal amount of plants. But just looking at this landscape now, within Tswalu there's over 30 different species of grass. I mean, that is very diverse. We're looking at just grass. And if you look at grass, obviously grass is a very important component of the savanna biome, and also plays a vital role in feeding all these beautiful different life forms. So I'd have to get back to you on that one, Rosalind, of how many plants there are in Tswalu. Great question. I like that. I like figures. So if we come over here, this is the flower of this beautiful elandsbean. And take a look at this. Look at that. Fantastic. There's a lot of pollen. Look, I just touched it with my finger, and look how much pollen has come off of these tiny, tiny little flowers. So ants would be a very big role play here. Butterflies. Unlike other plants, like grasses don't need vectors. Grasses are pollinated solely by wind, and that's all grasses across the globe. A very successful plant at that. But a very, very beautiful plant and easy to recognize. See, there's even a spider in here. What is that? Oh, there's a little spider. David, come close here. Looks like a lynx spider or a crab spider. Oh, there it is. Do you see it? Oh, it's got a fly. Oh, it's got a fly. See it there? Oh, my word. Oh, my word. Okay, I'm just going to use this piece of grass here. Folks, there's a little spider. There it is. Right there. Let me just try and...
Yeah.
Got it. Oh, my word. Let me just move this flower away. Oh, it looks like a crab spider. Spiders in this area. Let me just turn it. It's got on this side. I don't want to disturb it too much. Oh, it's got a prey item. Yeah. There's another one. Oh, my word. Look at that. It's caught a little fly. Oh, there's another one. They are crab spiders. Oh, my word. There's a few of them on here. Wow, look how tiny that thing is. That is about, I would say about a millimeter. Oh, there's another one on the stem of this plant. Look at that. And you can see the color of the spider perfectly suited to that of the plant. And if I move it, there's another one there. Yes, it is a crab spider. You can see from the way that it's holding its front legs that they are definitely crab spiders. You see that one there, Dave? Oh my word. So this is where the spider has more than likely found a perfect spot in order to seek out prey. That flower would have been attracted to the scent being produced by these beautiful little flowers, and that flower wouldn't have known. If you look at flies and insects in general, they have very, very good eyesight. So they are designed to pick up, especially flies, they are designed to pick up on speed or movement. Not to say that they've got great clarity. Unlike our eyes that have amazing ability to pick up on very fine detail, we don't have the ability to pick up on very fast movement, unlike this fly. So the fly would have landed here, and that spider would have been absolutely, totally blended into this plant, and last minute just fast strike, grab onto it and bite and paralyzing it. It's got quite a fluffy abdomen. It's coming up to my finger now. I mean, look at my fingernail, folks. Look how small that spider is. Oh my gosh. I'm just not going to move it anymore. I don't want to. He's moving himself. So definitely a form of a little crab spider. Okay, we're going to leave him be. It's going to move it slowly back up, right, Dave? Because I don't want to... Okay, he's gone down himself. So just the position of how those front legs are held, you can see it's a crab spider. So the shape, the morphological shape or structure is a very easy way sometimes on how to ID spiders. We're going to send you off to another amazing location. We'll be right here.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everyone. And we've just come across this big white rhino bull. And look how dark he is. He's absolutely covered in mud. I don't think there's a single inch of him that's not been covered in mud today. So he'd have been rolling on his back. On his side, he's got his whole head is covered in mud as well. He has been doing a bit of territorial marking. When we first saw him, he was really on a mission, just walking and spraying urine on prominent bushes along the path. But he has slowed down a little bit, and he's now feeding, but he's moving in the same sort of direction that he was when we found him first. See how he feeds. He'll walk quite quickly, take a few steps, and then find a spot where he likes the grass. Maybe it's the right length for him at the moment, and he'll find the grass that he wants to feed on, and then he'll slow down and feed, and then he'll take a few steps again and move to the next patch. And every now and then he does find, or he goes past a prominent bush, and then he'll spray some urine. I just need to move out of the way. George is asking, do white rhinos only eat grass? And yes, the answer is yes. You will only really ever see them with their heads down, facing towards the grass. And oh, there you go. There was a spray, and again, and another one. 4 sprays on that bush, or maybe 5. So you'll only ever see them with their heads down in the long grass. Occasionally, in amongst the grass, they might eat a very small shrub that's just mixed in with the grass, which is quite normal, and their stomachs can cope with and handle most of those little shrubs that they will pick up. But mostly they focus on grass. They're very specialized force, feeding on grass, so they've got the very flat, wide mouth, so that they can get at the really, really short grass in certain areas. But they will also feed on the top sections of some of the longer grass species that we get. And he's just disappeared behind the bush. So judging by that mud on his body, I think that's where he's been lying and resting for the day today. And now that it's cooled down a little bit, we've got these clouds that have come in, and there's a bit of a breeze blowing. He feels like he won't overheat on his... Sorry, I'm just going to move to the other side. He won't overheat on it while he's doing his territorial patrol. And quite usual or quite normal to see a big white rhino bull like this by himself, and that's because he is territorial, so he won't tolerate other bulls in his territory. You might occasionally see him with a female, and if that female maybe has a calf, you'll see the bull with a cow and a calf. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a family, but that bull might be courting that female. And the courtship process with rhinos takes quite a few days. And the bull will usually follow the female around. He will find her by smelling her urine and being able to tell from her urine that she's coming into heat. And then he will follow her around. And this is when there might be more than one bull that will pick up on that smell. And that's when white rhino bulls will clash with one another and fight for the mating rights of that female. That's another time where you might see a rhino bull with another rhino. But for the most part, they move by themselves. So I think as he feeds and moves off into the thicker bush, we're going to leave him be.
What you're looking at now is the entrance to an ant's nest, and all that fluffy, light-colored material that's around there, strewn about, is the seed pods from grasses. So we talked about it a couple days ago. We had Natal red top grass, and I said that the grass has a type of oil which the ants find very attractive, and they carry the seeds underground for the oil, but then once they've consumed the oily substance, they don't want the grass seeds, so they take them outside where they can be blown about in the wind, and that's how they spread their seeds. So I've got a grass in my hand here. It's not the Natal red top, but it's very similar. It looks kind of the same. So this grass here is, I'm not exactly sure what it is. It looks like a tassel grass or a thereon of some sort, but it shows the same thing. So the grass is quite persistent, but it has these fine fluffy hairs on it. Now, oftentimes they can be blown off by the wind and travel on their own wind power to just spread the seeds. But some of the grasses don't have as large bristles as this, and so they need a little bit of help, and that's where the ants come in. So the oils on these grasses are very attractive. The ants climb up. They use their sharp mandibles or mouth parts to clip these seeds off, and ants being very strong, even though they might be smaller than these little seed pods, they'll carry it underground consume the oil, and then take it out. And then if there's a rain or a strong wind, the grasses will be spread about. Most grasses in southern Africa are wind pollinated, but they are distributed in a variety of different methods. It's really, really cool. I love grasses. I think they're really spectacular. Okay, welcome back. Sorry about that, the audio problems at Phinda. But as you can see, we just left that little bit of a ant's nest, and we're driving along, and there's a tree that's half covering the road. This looks like it was a knobthorn. It was a knobthorn, still is a knobthorn, but half of it has been broken off by an elephant. And this is what elephants do when they are engineering. That's why we call elephants engineers of the bush, because they literally just break trees and open up areas and create little micro-habitats that other animals can use. And I've just spotted a very cool little fruiting plant. I'm going to move back slightly, BK, so you'll be able to see it a bit better. Do you see just over there, BK, there's a plant with a little yellow fruit? I don't know. I know it as a sandpaper bush, but I've been doing a bit of research and I can't find the correct name. Sandpaper bush is what it's known as in East Africa. In Southern Africa, I'm not 100% sure. The leaves are tough like sandpaper and very gritty. In fact, it can even be used as a type of sandpaper. Oh, sorry about that, BK. In an extreme circumstance. And you can see those little yellow fleshy seeds and those fruits. I'm not sure if they're edible. I actually have seen quite a few of the trees with these yellow fruits on them, and I haven't seen them being eaten by many other animals. And this is generally a sign that something should not be eaten. There are other ways to tell if something shouldn't be eaten as well. You know, if birds eat them, it doesn't necessarily mean we can. If baboons eat them, it doesn't mean we can. But if monkeys eat them, generally speaking, it's safe for us. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we must just grab handfuls of it and start stuffing it in our mouths, thinking that it's going to be super tasty. These things can sometimes have a reaction, so just take a small amount at a time. And in fact, if you didn't see anything eating these things, it might still be edible. These plants might still be edible. But what's important to do is to test it on your body in certain places before you just go ahead and eat the whole thing. So what you would normally do is take a tiny piece of that fruit and rub it on a soft area of skin like what's here at the crook of your elbow, and leave it there for about half an hour. If there's any sort of reaction at all with your skin, do not put that in your mouth, because your mouth is infinitely more sensitive than the skin there. Then the next step, if your skin doesn't react, put a little tip of it on your tongue or on this moist part of your lips. That will help as well to determine whether it's going to cause you problems. If your lips start tingling, if there's any sort of weird sensations, don't eat that. And slowly but surely, going a bit further until you eventually eat a small piece of it. And again, give it some time to work its way through. If you get any sort of weird stuff, don't eat that. And trust me, it happens all the time. There's something called a white berry bush, which is edible and very tasty. But oftentimes the students don't take my advice and just take a small bit at a time. They'll grab handfuls of this stuff, literally fistfuls of it, and just start eating it on a bushwalk. And inevitably, they're not used to eating such a fruit, and they end up getting the runs, which isn't great for anyone. But it's quite a good learning curve or learning lesson for the students. Not to just take our word for it, but to test things out in a systematic way so that they know that in future, they can find their own edible fruits without having to know exactly what it is, if they do it carefully. That's not to say that you must test out things that you know are toxic. So I don't know, this is a sandpaper bush, I believe, but I don't exactly know the correct name. Mrs. Lapwing, I'm not sure that I understood the question. Reparational flowers? I think that's what you asked. Do we get reparational flowers? Please maybe repeat that question. If you mean flowers that are medicinal in some way, I honestly, maybe my grasp of that particular word is not so strong. I'm not sure what you mean by reparational. I'm assuming that you mean medicinal in some way. And, oh, resurrection flowers. We get all sorts of flowers that seem to resurrect themselves year in and year out, especially after rains. During the dry season, they'll be gone. As soon as it rains, falls, these things will start coming out. Now, resurrection flower probably refers to a whole bunch of different flowers that, blossom in a very short period of time. But any specific one I wouldn't know. But one of the flowers which I would have sort of assumed might be a resurrection flower would be something called a Scedoxis multiflorum, which is a beautiful fireball lily. I think it might be called a fireball lily. Grows up in a thick green stem and a big round red brush-like flower head, and it's very beautiful, very toxic, but they also grow within days of rain from nothing at all. And another one that's very, very common that we see around here is called a black stick lily or a baboon's tail. And I'll see if I can find some for you and show them off to you, because that plant, out of the season, looks dead. It looks like there's no life in it at all. And as soon as rain falls, if the season is just right, beautiful green fronds come off it, leaves, and then beautiful mauve, pinky purple flowers as well. Really, really spectacular. If I see some, I'd love to show you.
Well, that's what we're on today. It feels like a plant flower kind of day. Oh, yes, a great question was asked. How many plants would you be able to find in Tswalu? So I've just looked through my checklist and just over a rough, quick tally up. This will be trees, creepers, annual forbs, exotics, you name it. A quick tally is about 150 different plants could be found within Tswalu. That's including grasses, which is phenomenal for an arid area like this. And this is another very beautiful perennial plant that comes out and dominates the veld through very favorable times. This is a beautiful plant called Senna italica, or wild senna. It's also got another common name, eland's pea, because of the shape of these large paddle-like leaves over here. You can see how large these things are. Look at that. Almost looks like a pea. Eland's pea. We just looked at eland's bean. So a very similar name, can be very tricky, and common names are obviously very tricky when it comes into taxonomical classification and identification. But it's unmistakable yellow, beautiful pea-like flowers over here with these. The ant. Oh, hello, little ant. Oh, hello. So myself and David have been sitting here for 10 minutes. We have found 2 different species of ant. So this is one that's moving up and about over here that David's busy focusing on. You focusing on this one, Dave? Yeah. So it looks like it's just moving in about. Here's another one over here. Look at this big individual here. Whoa! And Tswalu has a very high diversity of ants. And more than likely what these ants are doing is just utilizing the nectar being produced by these beautiful, beautiful flowers. So we found 2, here's a third species of ant. Here it comes in over here. It's coming through this grass over here. That's a third species of ant. You can see the abdomen, it's got a stripy abdomen. And if you look at ants, general appearance, you can somewhat categorize them into family, but it can become very tricky. With true classification, we have to speak to Wendy, a little ant expert. So we've got 2-3 different species of ant. We've got a bug, you can see here in front of us, beautiful uniform green color. The tip of the antennae are red or orange, and these are what we refer to as true bugs. And so we spoke about general classification, depending on life cycles. Now if we look at true bugs, they are categorized by having piercing mouth parts, and under the head over here, there'd be a tube that would be used to pierce plants and animal skin. Very diverse group of organisms, and some of them being specialists. Oh, here's a little caterpillar, look there. See him? It's a little green caterpillar. Got him?
No, not yet.
Okay, that's very tiny. It's right here, the end of the stick. Busy waving about trying to find another attachment point.
Yeah.
I mean, that is very small. And so even plants like this, we're trying to understand what are the relationships these plants have with multiple vectors or multiple organisms, because it is very, very fun, very complex. And just very beautiful to look at. There's quite a lot of these bugs. There's another one over here. So more than likely what these bugs will be doing is piercing this young plant and feeding off the sap. Control, is this flower in bloom? Yes. If I can just get David's attention and direction, this is one flower right over here. Look how intricate that little flower is. Those are the petals there that I'm touching right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And inside there, that's the male reproductive organs, the anther that I've just pushed back with this little blade of grass.
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful little plants. So like I said, it is a perennial herb and can last longer than that of a year. And medically, the root can be infused and actually used for stomach ailments to prevent, or even to prevent miscarriages, believe it or not. It's also used as a laxative, a volatile laxative at that. Its common name is called Swatstorm, and translated it means dark storm. So obviously from this root, if you had any tummy problems and you needed to relieve yourself, this is definitely a volatile species to use. Once these flowers have done their business and they start producing seeds, this too we can use as a substitute for coffee. In my gardening experience, it seems like every plant can be used as a substitute for coffee out here. Look at the shapes and the color. Just the patterns of nature is just incredible.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everyone, and I apologize, it's a little bit windy, but we are up on a slight ridge, and we are scanning down into the valleys around us just to try and check if we can see any sign of that female cheetah. And we managed to find this big elephant bull, and yeah, he's also down in the valley in the thicker trees and thicker bush, trying to get out of the wind. And he's almost hiding behind that big tree that he's feeding on. You can see that he's actually broken off a branch. That little white bit that's exposed there, that's the inner parts of the bark. And that is a bull, although you might notice he has no tusks. And we know this bull, we're not too sure how he lost his tusks, but both of his tusks have been broken off, so he wasn't born like that. He's got little stumps that you can see when you're really close to him. His tusks are broken off right at the base. So it possibly happened when he was feeding, using his tusk with his trunk, trying to snap a branch over his tusk, like we do snap a branch over our knee or use that leverage. So he was trying to do that, or he was fighting with another bull, and the pressure and the power of that other bull maybe snapped the tusk off. But it's quite unusual that both tusks are missing. Well, when I say missing, I mean broken. because we've definitely seen that he's got two little stumps sticking out. Tom's asking, can his tusks grow back? And so the tusks are actually his teeth. They go into his jaw, into his upper jaw, and so the tusks are modified teeth that have evolved to grow longer to aid the elephant with feeding. But like us, with our teeth, they grow until they reach a certain size and then they stop growing. And so unfortunately they might grow a little bit more because he's not a fully grown bull yet, so they might protrude a little bit more out of those out of his cheeks, but unfortunately they're not going to grow back to the tusks that he had before, because there are teeth which are rooted in his upper jaw. With their molars at the back of their mouth, those that they use for grinding up their food, those ones you could say grow back, but they are actually replaced throughout an elephant's life, and so they get ground down through feeding, and another pair, or another set, will grow through, and they go through about 6 sets in their life. And so those teeth, but those are the teeth, of course, that you can't see because those are in the back of their mouth. I've been scanning with binoculars all around us, and I haven't managed to see anything else down in these valleys. We have got quite a lot of impalas and zebras all around us, which are looking quite relaxed at the moment. They are feeding, some of them are lying down. If there was a cheetah moving around in this area, there might be alarm calling, or at least looking in her direction, and something like a zebra she would want to avoid. A zebra, elephant, any of the bigger animals that could be potentially dangerous to her little cubs. Matty's asking, would he be able to fight other bulls without his tusks? He definitely will try, but as you can imagine, he will be at a significant disadvantage not having tusks. He won't be able to defend himself properly, and he won't be able to, when he does, he wouldn't be able to attack or be aggressive to the other bull. And so I think he's going to battle to mate with any females, because he would have to beat off the other males in order to have those mating rights. So unfortunately, he probably won't get that right. But I've seen him playing and tussling with other bulls of a similar sort of size and age, mostly in water when they're actually playing and they're not being so serious. So he does know how to throw his weight around still, but definitely at a disadvantage not having any tusks. And he just moves into the thicker stuff there. But still feeding. He's balancing his diet quite nicely. There's some really nice grass down there, but feeding on a saffron at the moment, a saffron tree, and reaching up for some branches. So Craig and I are going to move on from here. We are going to see, well, we're going to check a few more drainage lines and valleys in this area, see if we can try and find that cheetah.
So this is that plant I was talking about, the one that I called the sandpaper bush. I did a bit of research real quick, and I come up that this plant is actually called a satin-barked saucerberry. All right, so satin-barked saucerberry, and if you go and look closely at it, you'll actually see that it's got these fine little hairs on it, and these hairs are very rough. In fact, so rough, oh, now of course the wind decides to pick up, but the bark is so rough, or the leaves rather, so rough, that I can even use them as a sandpaper. So watch, I've just picked a leaf, you can see the leaf right here, and I've picked a piece of wood a bit earlier. So I'm going to put it right over here so you can see it. So there's the wood. Watch this. It's literally taking off layers of the wood. That's how a leaf can be used as sandpaper. I'll even take a second one, so I've plucked a whole bunch of leaves, but I really want you to see just how shiny this can become. So we have the students are often doing this. They are obsessed with making walking sticks. So they often pick up branches from the bush to use as walking sticks. And when they don't have sandpaper, that's incredible. It's so smooth. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the camera, but there it's really rough. And there it's smooth enough for me to run my finger without snagging on anything. Here it's really rough, and there it's incredibly smooth. So this one little leaf here has the power, and it's still rough. I mean, I can even show you on my, so just so that you can see, I just used this piece of leaf. Check this out. There's my nail. Okay. Look at that. Can you see that? It's incredibly rough and very tough. I mean, this can easily be used as sandpaper. Amazing.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. And we're just sitting with these zebras and impalas. Just enjoying the scene at the moment. Zebras all facing the same direction, feeding into the wind. And all the impalas are feeding as well, which is quite interesting, but every now and then, much more regularly than under normal conditions, they are lifting their heads up and checking their surroundings. And that's because of this wind. So, I mean, with the wind blowing, the bush is alive. All the grass is moving, all the bushes are moving, the leaves are swaying in the wind, and there's a lot of sounds going on that will the sound of a predator approaching. So they actually have to rely more on a day like today when the wind's blowing like this and it's overcast, the light is quite dull. Have to rely on their eyesight to spot any danger. You see how they flick their heads up quite quickly when they take these gaps in feeding. And this is a big bachelor group. And they're, of course, sticking together for safety in numbers. Ow. Oh, Nate, that's a really good question. So Nate's asking, are zebras aggressive? And they can be very aggressive, especially the stallions. So the males, they will chase lots of other animals. That could be competition. So I've actually seen a video, I haven't seen it myself, but I've seen a video of a stallion, a zebra stallion killing a young male, and it was a very young foal, and he was biting it and stomping on it with his hooves, and he actually ended up killing that little zebra foal. So they can be quite aggressive, and they will definitely kill young predators when they can. So young cheetahs are at risk of being trampled on by zebras. Even if they maybe found a lion cub or a leopard cub, they would definitely take their opportunity to remove that threat. But of course, only if it's safe. If there's a risk that the mother is around, they'll avoid any confrontation with an adult lioness, especially, or male lion. And then the stallions compete viciously for mating as well. They bite each other and kick each other, and you'll see them running along side by side, and actually sometimes going round and round in circles, trying to bite each other on the backside or on the Achilles sort of heel or hamstring region of the other zebra. They'll try to bite one another there. And you might see on a zebra stallion, you might see bite marks on the neck and around the shoulders, so they can really do a lot of damage, and they are very powerful animals as well. Thank you for the comment, Marianne. I agree. It's a really pretty scene with the zebras and impalas just peacefully grazing here. There's no concerns for them at the moment. But as it does start to get darker, their awareness levels are going to need to go up a little bit, because of course when it starts to get dark, the nocturnal animals like leopard and lion start to get active. So they will definitely start to be looking out for those nocturnal predators.
Another one of my favorite mollusks in the order Gastropoda, African giant land snail. Now, it's actually shrunk. It's probably a little bit scared of my presence, but I'm going to put this pointer down here just so you can get an indication of the size, and then I am going to move away so that it hopefully reaches and extends full length again, and then we can actually see it moving. Not that it moves very fast at all. And just like the snakes and the other reptiles, they're out because of the moisture. They're out because of the rains. Now, we went into their wonderful reproductive sex life this morning, which in great detail, so I won't do that again. But this snail cannot survive without a shell, not at all. So if the shell was to be removed, which is not entirely possible, then it really can't survive without that sort of protective fortress. The shell is made in the mantle, that's what it's called. The part of this organism that makes the shell is called the mantle, and is primarily made up from calcium carbonate. There's a little bit of protein thrown into the mix, but it's generally made from calcium carbonate. And the mantle sort of produces the shell, and that's why it spirals. It comes out from the organism and it starts to spiral outwards. So if you were any sort of eviction from this shell means death. There's no way that it could survive without it. So every time the mantle adds a new layer of calcium carbonate and protein, the shell gets bigger and bigger and bigger, from being a juvenile to becoming an adult. And that material hardens, and that's why the shell is the most perfect armor. And of course, it can retreat inside as well. Although it doesn't necessarily guarantee complete safety. Lots of birds will not only eat the snail itself, they'll crunch the shell and eat it. And that's because, well, lots of calcium. And it's said that nesting birds actually enjoy eating the shell because they need additional calcium because they're nesting. Well, it's not like a turtle shell that's very much connected to the body and it's adapted from a body part. This shell, although it's produced from a body part, it doesn't contain any nerves or blood vessels. So it is a sort of external shell that's produced from the body and then pushed outwards. So it's completely different from the shell of a turtle. You'll need to repeat that question one more time, Londeka. I can only hear breathing in my ear, but I think he's asking about predators. Sassy Cassie, you're asking about predators. Quite a lot, to be honest. They're very easy prey when they're like this. And you will find hyenas. A leopard would snack on this. Absolutely. It would be so easy for them to crunch through the shell and probably swallow the poor snail whole. And that's your sort of bigger mammals. Lots of birds would swoop down. Aerial predators, raptors would swoop down and catch the snail with their talons, and it would be very, very easy to crunch through the shell with their beak. You'll also find things like mongoose would have a go. Other reptiles would try. It's a perfect delicacy. I don't think this little guy is moving at all. Theo says, no, I think it's time to collect my porky pointer and let this one go about his extremely mobile day. You have a lovely evening. I can't call you sir because, well, you're not male or female, are you? You're a little bit of both in the wonderful world of hermaphrodites. Can trial? Yes, he can. He or she can, or both. They have both sex organs, so both male and female, and they can retreat into their shell. Although the foot, the muscular foot that is actually powering them along, that's how they're able to move, will not sort of leave the ground and go into the shell. The muscular foot will stay attached to the substrate, but the rest of the body can retreat into the shell. See a huge muscular contraction that makes them pull their body in and will protect all the sensitive organs. The tentacles, the sensory organs around the mouth. I think they're just wonderful animals. Maybe not very exciting to some. Theo's given me the side eye. But I think they're wonderful. And you have to be really careful when you're driving after the rains. Snails, tortoises, snakes, everything's out. Frogs, dung beetles. So you've got to be really, really careful that you don't squish anybody. Now imagine being a land snail in this huge, vast landscape. It's massive, this area, and you've got to find another land snail to mate with. That's why they're hermaphrodites. That's why they have both male and female sex organs, because it makes so much more sense. Because for a male to then travel very slowly, might I add, this landscape to find a female makes it a lot more difficult. And that's why a lot of fish in the ocean are also hermaphrodites. There are different types of hermaphrodites, but it's easier. They've both got male and female reproductive organs. So when they meet another of the same kind, another of their own species, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're male or female, because they can, of course, mate, because they've got both reproductive organs. And that's why hermaphrodites evolved in the animal kingdom. Just like if you're a frogfish in the deep, dark depth of the ocean, how do you find another frogfish? It's not easy. So that's why the female is so much larger than the male, and when she does find a male, he fuses to her body and acts as a permanent sperm bank or permanent testicle and just supplies her with sperm her entire life. So he is no longer an individual frogfish, he's attached to her, and she carries him. Then she finds another male, and she carries him too. Yes, it's very bizarre. But you've got to think about their landscape, the snail's mobility. How on earth is he going to find another female? Well, the answer is just have the female reproductive parts, and then you just need to find another snail. Michelle, yes, I think it was a little bit scared by my presence. Wasn't expecting a visitor today. It will get mobile again. We just need to make sure it gets off the road. So I am going to leave Buffelshoek and race to the hyena den and see if it's active. Are we live? I'm not sure. I'm just putting on my jacket. It's rather chilly. Londeka can maybe let me know if I am live or not right now. My other warm jacket unfortunately got wet. I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay, we are going to drive, and hopefully Londeka can let me know if we are actually live. And I'm going to go completely over the snail in the middle, so do not worry. Okay, apparently I am live. Right, Theo, help me here. Am I good? Don't worry, I'll just go under the middle of the car. Okay, I get scared at moments like this. Are we good? The snail good? Everybody good? Theo's teasing me. We good? Okay. There we have it. So I am really racing now. WildEarth is leaving Buffelshoek, heading back to Djuma, and see if we can catch any activity at the hyena den. And that's why I put my jacket on. The temperatures are dropping. I think we're in a lot of, well, I think we're in store for some rain tonight. The skies are very dramatic. Let me quickly do a time check. Ooh. Can I make the hyena den? I think I can. Let me just get out of Buffelshoek and then we'll give you a view of some very dramatic skies. can you work with this probably terrible angle to give a view of the dramatic skies? No, probably not. The rain roof. Oh, there we go. Well done, Theo. So, as I race into Djuma, we are going to send you across to another live location.
The full moon approaches. Tomorrow, technically, is the full moon, although when you look at it tonight, you'd expect it to be just as much. It's incredibly bright. This is probably one of the brightest times, for me, the time when I can see the moon the best. Just as the sun is setting, the moon has risen up. It's about, an hour up into the sky. It's just so well illuminated, and you can see clouds going in front of it. It's really lovely, and you can see the craters even with the naked eye. You can see the craters on that moon. Really amazing to think how many massive objects have slammed into it and how many objects the moon has protected us from by being there, which is really, really awesome. It's late in the evening. We've stopped here just to admire the moon, but also to listen to what might be waking up at this time of the evening. It's, the time as the sun sets, the storm has passed us by, and it's like everything is poised for what might happen tonight. There was some suggestion, we were discussing it in the camp, are we going to get another storm overnight? If that's the case, it'll be very tricky for a lot of the antelope and herbivores, because we've seen so many young impalas about. And imagine being born and then literally an hour later or the same day, a massive thunderstorm and rain. You must just think this is the most terrifying existence, from being in the safe, confined womb of the mother looking after you, and then all of a sudden into this crazy world of cold wind and rain and thunderstorms. It must be quite tough, but they adapt so quickly. You have to adapt quickly out here, or else you're just not going to make it. Within 1 hour, an impala lamb must be able to get up and run, or else it will just never make it. Bush baby, I agree with you 100%. The moon does look glorious this afternoon, this evening. Especially the air is so clear. Before the storm came, there was so much humidity that we would have really struggled to see the moon. It would have been hazy. But now, after the rains fell, the air is much cooler and therefore less dense, and then we can see the moon much clearer. All the dust has been settled. There's a little thin wisp of a cloud just passing between us and the moon. Really is amazing. Favorite time of the day for a lot of people, because it means all the hairy, scary things, the cats and the other predators are about to start moving. Although on a day like today with this wind, they can, and it's very cold, they can be up and moving well before dark, starting to make the most of the hunting opportunities. We're in a little bit of a drainage line, and so there's a few dead trees around. Perfect silhouette for an owl. Just see doves and all sorts of birds landing in the trees just below that dead leadwood there, roosting for the evening. Sorry, I didn't get the question, Lara Moore. You're asking about something on the moon, something about the spots on the moon. I didn't get it quite clearly. Can you just say that again? Larimore, those lighter spots on the moon, so let's start off with the grey areas. The greyish areas of the moon are low-lying, flat areas. As I understand it, the lighter the colours are slightly higher areas, and then the very lightest spots are actually impact craters that you can see. In fact, on the the right-hand side of the moon there, you can see a very, very big impact crater with lines spreading out from it. And so that was where the impact happened, and then as the dust settled, that was what was left. As far as I'm aware, the darker areas are low-lying flat areas, and the lighter areas are a bit higher with the very, very white dots. Those are craters, impact craters from asteroids and meteorites that have impacted. If you would zoom out of the Earth and have this sort of view of the Earth, you might see some similar-looking formations from, impacts that have happened to our planet over its time. Ours are covered in vegetation and oceans and snow and all sorts of other things, but if you stripped it all down to the bare rock, the crust, without the vegetation and the clouds and everything else, you'd see something that probably looked very similar to this, with the continents being lighter and the seabed being slightly darker, lower, flat areas. But the vast majority of the seabed is just flat, silty, clay-bottomed, lifeless almost, although there's lots of microbial life and lots of small things. It's not like the shallower seas and on land where it's teeming with life. The ocean is a vast, empty place, relatively unexplored. Strangely enough, I think, I always get told this, and I don't know how true it is, but that the people know more about the surface of the moon than they do about the depths of the ocean, which always astounds me. We can't understand how that can be possible. But then again, the bottom of the ocean is a very inhospitable place for a human being. Just as inhospitable as the surface of the moon, to be honest. And if you heard that bird flying past, I'm sure that most of you will know what that is, especially any of you watching from cities in South Africa. It was a hardy-dar ibis, hardy-darring its way to its evening roosting spot. Very loud bird. The bane of many suburban city folks' mornings when they start getting active, usually much earlier than we'd like to be up if we're living in the cities. Well, we're probably going to move a bit higher up this slope and have a last look at the dying rays of the sun.
So as nightfall approaches, these incredible animals become fairly active. And what a beautiful sound. That is, the sound is being produced by one of 7 species of frog and toad that we have on Tswalu. And this specific species is the bubbling casina. Almost sounds like bubbles popping. So if you look at South Africa and the gradient of rain, as you have a gradient that increases with rain, that will be the northwestern corner of South Africa, so would you have the diversity of frogs increasing. You have high diversity in the northeastern corner of South Africa, and then you have high endemism in the southwestern corner of South Africa. And we have some very, very rare and very critically endangered species, especially from groups like ghost frogs and macro frogs. They're found in very specialized, tiny little habitats. So localized will be 2 or 3 streams maybe within the province. Sure. And these are males calling out and sorting each other out via vocalization. It's a very efficient way of sorting out a dispute. Glenn, it is a fantastic sound. And if you look at how frogs produce sound, it's pretty remarkable. And they're producing sound to basically sort each other out. If I sound bigger and I sound better than you, then, then we don't have to get into a bit of conflict. And that's great when it comes to being out here. But also now the ladies can listen very carefully and keep a close eye on who sounds the best. So frogs and toads are generally categorized into a group called amphibians. Amphi, meaning two-stage, and then bios, meaning life. So 2 stages that this beautiful organism will go through. Obviously, being a tadpole in a body of water like this, first the eggs will be produced. They'll be counter-shaded, and frogs, like you're hearing now, produce eggs in clumps. And what I'm referring to when they counter-shade is that the top half will be dark and the bottom half will be light. And that is enabling this beautiful little vessel to, it's every chance to reach a stage where the little tadpole will hatch. So it is a form of protection or camouflage, so to say. And so it's the only vertebrate that goes through a phase from an aquatic environment and then moving into to dry land through their development. It's quite an incredible process. You've got to think about the gills, the way they feed. When they're tadpoles, they feed on algae and decaying matter. And when they're adults, they feed on prey items, so they become carnivorous. So a whole lot of morphological, structural changes have to happen. But for now, we're going to enjoy this beautiful sound and sight, and we're going to send you off.
Well, the evening is falling, everything is getting a bit darker, and there's a couple of young impala rams having one last little sparring session before coming very stationary. I mean, on a windy night, especially if it gets dark, they don't want to be doing this and advertising themselves to any predators that might be about. They're both young impalas, though. Probably coming to their 3rd year, I'd say. Not quite fully grown just yet. There's a fully grown male who's just popped in behind them. This impala here must be about 4 years old minimum. And their horns like this. And there are a lot of impala rams here. This one is very big, but there are lots and lots of big, strong impala rams all throughout this clearing that's called impala clearings. As you can see there, we passed a whole bunch as well. I mean, there's probably only about half of the impalas here that we can actually see. There's another whole half of them behind us, so maybe over 60 impalas. This is that massive bachelor group that we see all the time in this clearing. And, I mean, that's why it's called impala clearing, because these impalas are here almost every single evening. You'd think that with so many antelope around, it must be an absolute buffet table for any predators in the area. But interestingly, the more impalas there are, the more animals there are around, the less likely it is that a lion or leopard would be able to make a kill successfully. The more opportunities they might have, if any should, wander a bit too far from the herd, sure. But all these impalas that are in the middle of the clearing with plenty of space around them, they're all going to be pretty safe from any potential predators.
All right, so looking at the period in which we're in now, we're in summer, and this is typical of these organisms through the summer period, where breeding is stimulated by rainfall and as well as day of length. And temperature also plays a massive factor in this as well. So you'll find that males will congregate in water just like this to attract females. Males will be smaller than that of females themselves. And the female will be listening very carefully over who is sounding the best. And then what she will do is then approach that individual where mating will take place. So you'll find that within frogs, it's very diverse. And if you look at frogs, they have a certain way in which they will mate. All fertilization is done externally. So that means a certain species of frog has to hold on to the female in a certain manner to ensure fertilization takes place. So for these guys, and that holding position is what we refer to as amplexus. So in frogs like this, it would be an auxiliary amplexus. So fertilization will obviously happen externally, and then once the little eggs have been fertilized, they would be in a body of water just like this for the development. When the little tadpoles hatch, they'll have obviously a little tail, fins, and then gills. Obviously gills enable them to extract oxygen out of the water. And then they have mouth parts, which obviously are adapted to feed on that of vegetation. And then with a bit of time, a bit of more development, you would find that the lungs would start to develop, legs will start to emerge. It will be first the hind legs, then the front legs, eardrums, eyes, and then the tongue, obviously needed to be an adult frog. And then obviously it'll merge out the water, being able to breathe externally. It's quite a remarkable change or transformation in how this little organism goes through these stages to become as an adult. And then completing the life cycle, coming to a body of water like this again in order to attract a mate. Sorry, frogs will be auxiliary amplexus. In butterfly, I think that was they make foam nests. No, these guys don't make foam nests. They would have eggs that are clumped together, so they have a special coating that obviously protects the egg. It also has antifungal and antibacterial properties on it just to protect this little developing embryo inside, and they are clumped and actually adhering to one another while inside of a body of water like this. Foam nest frogs are really incredible when it comes to breeding, creating those beautiful foam-like structures under trees. But the bubbling cassina does not practice such behavior. So some frogs hold each other, so where the front legs are behind the female's front legs, so the male, will be behind the female, and his front legs will be behind her front legs. That's what refers to inguinal amplexus. Then when his front legs are in front of her hind legs, it will be auxiliary, just like displayed by these bubbling cassinas. And then we have another unique form where the female actually produces a sticky substance and the male actually adheres, gets stuck, physically stuck to the female, whereas then she'll bury both of them in a chamber underground where fertilization will take place. Frogs are really incredible and also a very important part of the ecosystem, but also is a very important tool for us to understand the healthy function of this pan, because if frogs are affected from different things like fungus, they will die and this whole system will start to cripple. We're going to send you off and we'll see you back this side.
We have a hyena, not at the den, I think it's Heart, starting her nightly missions. Hello, dear. And there you go. Heart is behind us and we have our rain roof on, so there's not much we can do about that. But we are racing to the den. We're in infrared now. You may be able to tell. That black and white image, which definitely doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing, I can agree with that, than colour. But when there's low sort of ambient light, the picture becomes very grainy anyway. And by using infrared, it means we can see the animal without shining any sort of artificial light on it. I don't have any lights on in my car. But we're racing to the den now. But seeing Heart there, I wonder if she's just left the den. But you never know. Let's see. We still have time. So fingers crossed, the next time you see me, I will be sitting at a very active hyena den.
Right, so why frogs are very important indicators is because their skin is semi-permeable. They actually physically breathe and take water through their physical skin, which is remarkable. So if you have an area with a high diversity of frogs, and if you have the unfortunate problem like, pollutants, especially from factories or human activities, this will then affect the frogs. And this is used as an indicator species to see the healthy functioning of a system. So if your frog species start to decline, then you know the system itself is in trouble. Very, very important and remarkable species. And around the world, we are dealing now with a very dangerous thing called chytrid, which is a fungal growth that is killing frogs around the world. And we are still yet to try and understand how to combat this very aggressive fungus. And if you take a look at Cape Town, like I mentioned, there is some very critically endangered frog species there. So if unfortunately that chytrid ends up down there, that will obviously affect those beautiful organisms. So you can see from when we started how the tempo of these frogs have increased. They went through patterns of calling, stopping, calling, stopping. And now the tempo or the call rate has now suddenly increased. And that's because there's more and more frogs. As the temperatures are cooled down a bit and there's a bit of cover, they have now decided that they're going to take the opportunity, emerge out of the vegetation and start to call for available females. And this is only going to get more and more. The intensity is only going to increase as we go on.
Odiba.
What was the question?
Those sounds made the princess.
Those sounds make the frog the princess. That is, if you look at frogs in South Africa, they have some very beautiful calls. You get little species called bush squeakers. Painted reed frogs are also very beautiful calling frogs. And each frog obviously recognizes its own species of call or species recognition. Let me say that. Whoa, I'm getting tongue-tied here. But it can become quite, how can I say, distorted if you come into a pan and you have 10 different species. It can be very, very distracting. And obviously over time you get to know exactly who is who in these little bodies of water. So we've just come to this pan to see if we could have any luck of any carnivores coming in here. It started to cool off, and this is where your lions in this area will become a little more active. It's just too perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Some birds coming to the water holes. Oh, mind my head. Nathan, how do frogs contribute to the ecosystem? That's a great question. So if you take a look at adults, okay, let's go look at tadpoles. Tadpoles, obviously in the eggs, they become food sources for aquatic insects such as dragonflies, stoneflies, and then when they're tadpoles, they also have a great effect on the food chain, becoming prey, but then also they control algae within bodies of water like this. When they emerge and they finally go through that process of metamorphosis is to change. When they are adults, they become carnivorous. So then they have a massive effect on certain insect species by actually physically regulating the population of certain insects. But then in turn they become prey themselves. Birds, mammals, fish, reptiles, they become a prey source. So their viability, their the input is massive within functioning ecosystems, just like this little body of water here. There is so many finely interconnected little chains and links going on just in this little body of water that would mind boggle you. So they are so important, vital at that, let me say. Absolutely vital. Phew, I think they've gotten even louder, it sounds like it. Wow. Frogs can also be hosts for internal parasites. So if you look at some parasites, they need certain hosts. Some of them can be obligate parasites, so needing a specific host. So the function of a frog is just incredible. It's beautiful stilts, and what a beautiful reflection that's been created on that very still water there. Almost making a perfect mirror image. Oh my word. Look at that. Wow. That thin needle-like beak. Obviously a very important tool to catch insects. And then you can see those long legs. In South Africa, this is the bird that has the longest leg to body ratio. So it having a massive advantage wading out into deeper water where other wading species would not be able to enter.
Now we've came across a giraffe, and once again, for a diurnal animal, we're able to view, I think it's a male, could you just go up, Theo, to those ossicones? Yes, we're able to view this boy because we don't have any lights, we're using the infrared. But normally for diurnal species, daytime species that are active during the day, you don't want to put lights on them. Now, giraffes are said to be one of the sleepless animals, or most sleepless animals in the entire animal kingdom. They really don't sleep for long. Now, they can go through periods of rest, standing up, a bit like elephants, but they can also sort of bend their knees, sit down on the ground, and then curl their neck around their body. Now, it looks a bit bizarre, but it does leave them vulnerable. And that's why you really won't find a giraffe lying down on the ground for too long. It's difficult for them to get up. They've got a heavy body mass, and therefore if lions were to come along, that would mean they're in big trouble. So they're said to only sleep in about 5-minute installments. My goodness. That sounds awful to me. I love my sleep. And overall, it's said to be about 4.5 hours in every 24 hours. The giraffes have ossicones, mostly the males, for fighting. The males will use it, sort of derived from sexual selection. And they're actually made from cartilage at birth. And they're flat against the giraffe's head. Now, cartilage is a completely different material from bone. It's far less dense, it's lightweight, and it's extremely flexible. It's also very resistant to disease for animals that are possibly in the ocean. I can hear all the sounds of the night around me. And then they ossify, which means they turn into bone as the giraffe gets older and they start to become erect and stand upright. Now, the males really wallop one another with these ossicones when they're necking or when they're clubbing. I find it really, really disturbing. And sometimes the young boys can just do it and play, but the older boys can really injure one another. And at Tswalu, actually, I saw a male giraffe with a huge injury in his chest, pouring of blood, where another male's ossicone has went into him. So it's mainly derived from fighting, really. for the females, they also have ossicones, and because they don't fight, they have lots of hair at the very, very top of their ossicones. It's really fluffy and tuffy. They don't go bald because they're not clubbing one another. Butterfly, I agree. It's a perfect night for a giraffe sighting. Although I see lightning far, far off in the distance. Sheet lightning very far away. But I do think a thunderstorm is rolling in tonight. I often wonder how the animals deal with that. If you think of the impala lambs, they're so small, they're new to this world. Yes, they were born very precocial, but they're new, everything's new, they're learning from mum. And all of a sudden this thunderstorm rolls in, and the thunder, the lightning is right above you. So that sound, that loud sound is almost deafening. I often wonder how they would interpret it when it's their first experience. Giraffes have also been known to be struck by lightning. Of course, any species out here will get used to thunderstorms, unless you're my beagle who has a dramatic meltdown every time there's thunder. We have to invest in doggy Calpol to calm her down. But if you're not my beagle, then they just adapt to it, I imagine. I just wonder how it feels to be the likes of an impala lamb and experience it for the first time. That sound. So lovely just to sit here with the engine off and listen to the sounds of the night. But we are going to let this male giraffe get on with his evening and head towards quarantine.
Welcome back. I've just tried my hardest to sneak in here to see if we could get a glimpse of this beautiful little frog. And obviously with my presence, what they're doing is sitting just in these little reeds here. And as they hear me, they're gone. Beautiful bird that's somewhere very close here, and if we can catch a glimpse of it, it's one of those brute parasites. It's the Dedrex cuckoo, and it was calling a little way away, and as soon as I called it stopped. That means it's looking for me. So a lot of activity. You can just see them moving. As they see me, they move deeper down into the water, and then obviously using their webbed feet to propel them. Just be very over here. Obviously, we are in an area with lions. That's the thing about guides, when they're left alone with no guests on board, and we kind of drop our guard very quickly. Doing now is triangulating. So it's trying to suss out my position, and if it does come in here, it'll be such a treat. Beautiful Namakwa doves calling. Comes another one's just landed here for a late afternoon drink. Nice male, just on the water's edge there, David. And then the do-do-do-do-do-do-do, a laughing dove. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So when it comes to bird calls, and if you folks want to remember them, put little phrases to them or make up a little saying, that's the easiest way I find is to learn bird calls. And it can become very enjoyable. The same as IDing frogs via call. It becomes really entertaining. Things are really slowing down. All the birds are just starting to slow down now. It's almost like the calm of the night is starting to set in. And we thought we'd get lucky here with a little line or two. So, well, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Please be sure to join us tomorrow for the Sunrise Safari. From us, very good night and thanks again.
Mara Triangle in Kenya. It's just overcast and so beautiful. We are starting this morning, heading towards that area that I left yesterday. Welcome to your live safari from the African wilderness. And it's actually